Part 92. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Ganxiao. Chapter 945. Seeing that someone had already gone to report the news, Su Tong rushed ahead and rushed into the dense forest. This dense forest seems to be in peace with the outside world, but it has been set up by someone. Can only enter but not exit. As soon as he entered the formation, the scene in front of him suddenly shocked him deeply. Even though we could see the siege and killing force outside just now, we only found out when we got closer that the fighting was so fierce. At this moment, 3 to 5 6 people holding swords and magic skills were taking turns to enter the battle around a Taoist priest in white clothes and a long beard. There were more than 10 people standing in the distance, maintaining the formation to prevent the other party from escaping, and watching the battle at any time. Prepare for a sneak attack to hit. After Su Tong came in, he stood aside calmly and watched with cold eyes, as if he was just here to help. No one asked much when they saw this. After all, the fight ahead was extremely dangerous at the moment. Zhang Yishan, hand over your things, otherwise you will be exhausted today. I saw the long sword in the man's hand shook, and 4 sword energies were generated. The sky sword, the earth sword, the wind sword, and the thunder sword were used continuously. As expected of the Huashan sword head, each of the 4 sword chi has a kind of sword will, like the sky with soaring clouds above, the earth with thick virtues, the smooth wind, and the thunderous thunder. The way of heaven and humanity is perfectly integrated into the sword's power. Facing this sword attack, the long-bearded Taoist revealed a sarcastic look on his face and sneered, "Feng Tianhua, your swordsmanship is far worse than your master. I think you, the Huashan lineage, are not as good as the last generation." Pandeo asserts, if you, Huashan, do not produce a great person in 3 generations, after 3 generations of swordsmanship in the world, there will no longer be a place for you, Huashan, to gain a foothold. After the long-bearded Taoist said that, his fist intention sprouted, and he punched out, turning into a golden bridge and a rainbow, crossing the void. The figure actually followed this golden light and passed through the 4 sword intentions easily. One sword of Hunyuan creates the universe. Just when the long-bearded Taoist Zhang Yishan broke out of the sword formation, an old man stabbed him head-on with a sword. The person who took action was Zhang Yishan's senior brother, Daio Zhen Zhao Yuan Zhen, who was also the main force behind Zhang Yishan's pursuit this time. This palm carries the power to reverse the universe. Even Zhang Yishan did not dare to be careless, feeling a strong threat. He shook his Taoist robes, and the innate gossip appeared around him, spinning rapidly, and then separated into layers, forming a formation in reverse direction. Bagua is divided into 4 images, the 4 images are divided into 2 rituals, the 2 rituals are transformed into Tai Chi, and Tai Chi is transformed into Wuji. It didn't take any time at all for a chaotic energy to envelope Zhang Yishan's body. As soon as this method came out, countless experts present changed their expressions. No one in Taoism in the world can control it beyond Longhu Mountain. This statement is truly worthy of the name. He was able to reversely dismantle the inconspicuous Bagua formation in such a short period of time, destroy acquired nature and transform innate nature, and reversely activate the Wuji formation. Putting aside other things, this skill alone is enough to show Zhang Yishan's strength. How strong! As expected of the person who gave me the surname. However, at this moment, Daio Zhenren's huge sword force was directly projected in along with the true form of the dragon and tiger. Under this sword force, the chaotic energy that had not yet condensed into shape was immediately torn apart by the dragon and the tiger. Open. This is exactly the dragon-tiger sword fighting technique of Longhu Mountain. What a powerful swordsmanship! Su Tong couldn't help but feel a little shocked when he looked at this sword. This sword has endless changes, with dragons and tigers accompanying it. What he uses is a sword move, but it is a Taoist technique. But it's still far behind Yan Zioqi's sword. It's not pure enough. It's completely overpowering in terms of cultivation. Su Tong secretly compared them, and felt more and more in his heart that whether it was Taiyo Genren or the Huashan sword master, although their swordsmanship was strong, they were far from reaching their peak. But in the eyes of others, this is already the most amazing battle in this decade. These two people are worthy of being the four great masters of Longhu Mountain. This is really a fight between gods and gods. The leaders and experts who are watching from a distance are all frightened. Inside the door to see the door, the layman to watch the fun. The people present are all famous people in the world, and there are many first-class masters who are ranked in the top 50 in the world, and there are no less than 7 or 8 enlightened ones. Zhao Yuanzhen's sword is like an antelope hanging its horns, a flying fairy from the sky, even more powerful than a dragon or a tiger. This swordsmanship is named after the order of dragon and tiger. It is the top swordsmanship in Longhu Mountain. When dragon and tiger meet, they can move the clouds and mist, which can break through all kinds of magic in the world. But Zhang Yishan's infinite chaos formation is even more terrifying. If it were half a beat slower and the chaos energy was completely condensed, even if Zhao Yuanzhen was a real person in this world, he would probably die or be disabled. Dragons and tigers contended, swords moved across strange peaks, tearing apart the chaotic energy that had not yet condensed into shape, and completely revealed Zhang Yishan's form. However, seeing his Wuji formation being broken, Zhang Yishan's eyes and pupils did not show any fear at all, but he was extremely calm. Boom! A loud noise made the entire mountain tremble, and a purple thunderbolt fell from the sky. In an instant, everyone's souls trembled. Purple Sky Talisman. Su Tong's eyes widened. This scene was too familiar. He had been lucky enough to experience it once in the script. He had relied on this divine thunder to severely damage the evil Buddha Mochuoda summoned by Lu Ji. Seeing this method again now confirms that the old magic stick who drew the talisman on his hand was the celestial master of Longhu Mountain at that time. No, the power of this magic talisman is not as good as the one painted by the old heavenly master. It seems to be a little less tasteful. Su Tong is now different from what he used to be. The little fat man with the second soul specializes in thunder magic. He has a very deep research on thunder magic. Although he is missing these 3 points of inexplicable charm, the gap is widened immediately. This is just like cooking. The same ingredients will taste very different in the hands of different chefs. The reason may be due to the other's knife skills, fire skills, or even the so-called pot aura. The tip of the sword touched Zhang Yishan's finger, and when the huge force was about to crush Zhang Yishan's finger, the thunder light fell, like a giant dragon's scourge, striking straight at Zhao Yuanzhen. Junior brother, I've been waiting for your sword for a long time. Zhang Yishan's eyes were like fire. This sky-shaking divine thunder was exactly what he had deliberately left behind. At the critical moment, a huge hand tore through the void and grabbed hold of the thunder. Vitality Mahamudra. Some people exclaimed that it was the unique skill of the Yuan Qi Shen cult, which could turn all things into vital energy. Su Tong suddenly looked up and saw a huge chariot falling from the clouds in the sky in the haze. An old man with a Mediterranean hairstyle opened his palms and controlled the sky-covering hand to compete with the thunder. This is the Yuankai God sect. Su Tong's eyes showed shock. If Zhang Yishan hadn't betrayed Longhu Mountain, I'm afraid it wasn't the gang of chickens and dogs that surrounded and killed them that day, but this giant flying chariot. Then he glanced at the Mediterranean on the chariot. He, like Zhang Yishan, Zhao Yuanzhen, and the Huashan swordsman, were all land gods in the Dao-killing realm. Good fellow, I thought enlightenment was just cabbage, and the gods on the land have become so worthless. Su Tong secretly complained. But what he said is a bit extreme. The realm of land gods is naturally one of the best, but Zhang Yishan's movement this time can't be resisted. Longhu Mountain has always been the pinnacle of Taoism in the world. He betrayed Longhu Mountain with a heavy treasure, naturally. We have attracted all these top masters who are rare in the world. I saw that Mediterranean's face was ferocious. Even though he was a land god, how could the Zixiao divine thunder be a joke? The lightning struck the great hand seal of vitality and was about to pierce through it in an instant. Inject true energy into me. Mediterranean roared, and a group of disciples behind him took action, injecting their essence into Mediterranean's body. At the same time, the slaves on the chariot continued to throw ores and gold into the brazier. These rare treasures were thrown into behind the brazier, it turned into billowing essence and poured into the body of the Mediterranean Sea. This thing is actually similar to my great sun Ruyi furnace. Su Tong couldn't help being shocked when he saw this, and began to wonder if he could seize this tank if he had a chance. With the joining of the leader of the Yuan Kai-shen cult, Mediterranean, Zhang Yishan's opportunity to fight back was immediately interrupted. His fingers were crushed by Zhao Yuanzhen's sword, and blood sprayed in the air. Zhang Yishan did not panic when he saw this, but his fingers were stained with blood. The talisman drew a strange talisman. Edict. For a moment, the talisman light burst into action, the divine light covered the space, and the space was condensed. The power was extremely powerful. Even Zhao Yuanzhen, who was also one of the four great masters of Longhu Mountain, changed his expression. He had a dragon and tiger flag in his hand, protecting his whole body and retreating quickly. I saw the talisman light shining forward. Zhao Yuanzhen snorted, and her face instantly turned pale. Su Tong looked at it with his life eye and found that this photo almost broke Zhao Yuanzhen's luck. This talisman is actually a talisman specially designed to attack luck. For a moment, some thoughts inevitably occurred in his heart, including Yun Xiang, who was in his hall, also jumped up from the immortal stove, staring straight at this treasure talisman with two pairs of big eyes. Zhang Yishan held the treasure talisman and pointed it at the Mediterranean Sea on the Yuan Kai chariot. Now the Mediterranean Sea's expression did not look good. No matter how powerful he is, it is absolutely impossible for him to resist the divine thunder and this talisman at the same time. At this moment, a sneer came from the Yuan Kai chariot. Zhang Yishan, you are so brave, you even dare to steal the seal of the heavenly master of Longhu Mountain. Along with the voice, Su Tong's eyes were suddenly covered by a brilliant golden light, and a huge wave of luck covered the sky, like a real dragon coming into the world. I saw a young man, wearing a golden crown on his head, holding a scepter in his hand, and wearing a white gold robe, appearing on the battleship. The talisman's light shone on this man, but he did not move at all. The lucky dragon above the young man's head was annoyed by the talisman light and let out a series of roars, which was about to shatter the talisman in Zhang Yishan's hand. This person is none other than the future emperor of the great barbarians, the fourth prince of the northern barbarians, Yeliki. Zhang Yishan's face suddenly turned pale. Although this celestial master's seal can defeat someone's luck, it cannot do so when faced with the fourth prince of the northern barbarians. The luck of the other party is not personal luck, but the national destiny of most of the northern barbarians. Even if one's personal magic power is as high as the sky, it cannot withstand the fate of the country. There will be another update tonight. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 946. Yeliki, he is Yeliki, the fourth prince of the northern barbarians. Everyone whispered, but they did not expect that at this critical moment of the battle between Baman and Tianqian, the fourth prince would come here in person. So he is the fourth prince of the northern barbarians. Su Tong looked up and down at the northern barbarian crown prince, and inevitably began to make calculations in his mind. If he could capture this man alive, even if he had to take his head, it would probably be an extraordinary feat. However, Su Tong himself was not very sure about this matter. Yeliki's strength was not very high. He only had a Dao fruit in the early stages of entering the Dao. But he has half the blessing of the northern barbarian national fortune, which is a bit unbelievable. He is also a prince. What kind of configuration Brother Yeligin has, Yeliki simply outclasses him. In fact, not only brother Yeligin, but no other princess or prince in the northern barbarians can compare with Yeliki. His maternal family is the Xiao family. Xiaolishan, who was third in the world, was his uncle. People said that his maternal uncle was the elder brother. Xiaolishan supported his nephew. He said that Yeliki was the next emperor of the northern barbarians. No one in the northern barbarians would dare to say no. Even the old emperor of the northern barbarians does not dare to do so. If he dares, Xiaolishan can directly kick the emperor off the throne. It is said that Yeliki accounts for half of the national destiny of the northern barbarians, and it was given to him by his uncle. Otherwise, Xiaolishan would not necessarily be ranked third in the world if he alone accounted for the national destiny of the northern barbarians. After all, they are all land gods, and they are fighting for the luck of both parties. One person comes with the destiny of the country, and who is the opponent? Oh, there are exceptions. For example, the man who is number one in the world at Longhu Mountain, Su Lai, the lord of the heavenly stem kingdom, came with the destiny of the heavenly stem kingdom. When facing that young man, he ran away after just 3 moves. After this battle, the destiny of the country was reduced by 10% and suffered 3 years of drought. The opportunity to annex Suankan country was missed. This incident made Su Lai so depressed that he vomited blood just thinking about it. From then on, he no longer easily left the border of Tianqian Kingdom. It is said that the number one in the world at both ends of Longhu Mountain is not even allowed to see the 4 real people, otherwise Zhang Yishan would definitely not have betrayed Longhu Mountain. Zhang Yishan saw a bitter look on Yeliki's face. It turns out he is the prince of the northern barbarians, so this heavenly master seal is useless. Saying this, he put away the seal in his hand. At that moment, Zhao Yuanzhen, Feng Tianhua, and Mediterranean, as well as the leaders and masters of various sects present, surrounded Zhang Yishan. Feng Tianhua laughed triumphantly and said, "Zhang Yishan, even if you have the fate of a white ape, you are still in a desperate situation today. If you take out your things and plead guilty, I believe that Master Zhao may not give you a way out." Ba, the majestic 5 mountain swordsman, your Huashan sect is getting worse and worse. Zhang Yishan knew that Feng Tianhua was willing to help because he came for the treasure in his hand, but he was really a hypocrite for speaking so high-sounding. "Senior brother, the matter is over, follow me back to the mountain." Zhao Yuanzhen sighed. The last thing he wanted to see was a fellow sect killing each other. "Junior brother, the heavenly master has never left the seclusion. As the real guardian of Longhu Mountain, this thing should be kept by me. If it weren't for your aggressiveness, why should I bring this thing down the mountain? If you kill them all, then the master will come out of the seclusion on that day. How will you face the master?" Zhang Yishan reprimanded angrily without giving Zhao Yuanzhen any face. Seeing his resolute attitude, Zhao Yuanzhen remained silent and silently raised the sword in his hand. "Ha ha ha, today is a good day. I am deeply honored to be able to join forces with all of you. The crown prince of the northern barbarians is also here today. We will do justice for heaven and win the treasure. Why don't we all come to my chariot of vitality and share it together? How about a reward for this treasure?" The Mediterranean proudly extends an invitation to everyone. The 4th prince on the chariot of vitality took a step forward, gently put down the scepter in his hand that symbolized royal power, bowed to everyone, and looked like a polite corporal. "The little king has asked for Tianshan jade wine. This wine is a wonderful medicine in the world that has the effect of improving one's skill. If you don't give it up, you can have a drink with the little king after killing this thief." Apart from anything else, these 4 princes are indeed of royal blood, married to noble families, and they are indeed good looking. In reality, they are probably just a piece of meat. And this Tianshan jade wine is even more famous. It is a famous wine in the world. It was refined by the Yuankai God sect on the Tianshan mountain in accordance with the right time and place, using secret medicine. It is said that drinking 1 cup can increase 10 years of hard work. Although many people are tempted, after all, people in the world are just fighting for fame and fortune. It is also a beautiful thing to have a direct relationship with the northern barbarian royal family. Seeing that these people had already begun to flirt with the fourth prince before they took action, Su Tong curled his lips with a look of disdain on his face and said to himself, I thought they were heroes of the world, but it turns out they are just a bunch of villains. Zhang Yishan, who was on the side, took this scene in his heart, and felt sad in his heart. I didn't expect that a person like me would die in the hands of these villains, how sad. Master. At this moment, Su Tong's ear twitched, and his eyebrows were already filled with joy. He calmly took 2 steps back, and quietly hid himself in the darkness. A moment later, he saw a disciple running in a hurry from a distance. He ran so hastily that he fell to the ground and stumbled up, throwing himself down in front of his master. When a sect leader saw this, he immediately looked unhappy and was about to get angry when he saw the disciple's eyes were red, and he pointed angrily at the Mediterranean Sea and said loudly, Master, these despicable villains from the Yuan Kai Shen cult are taking advantage of your absence to kill everyone. After arriving at the human inn, all the senior fellow apprentices were all killed. After saying this, the disciple fell to his knees and cried loudly. As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. Mediterranean was even more stunned. Someone hurriedly asked, What did you say? The human inn was blood-bathed. Where are my disciples? The brothers and sisters from Huashan, Diankang, Tianxing, Tianlong, Beggar Clan, and other sects were all killed. The other party used the vitality talisman to suck them all into human beings. When everyone heard this, they were stunned for a moment. Among the disciples who could be taken out of the mountain gate to travel around the world and gain experience, which one was not their own treasure, and which one was not the seed of the future in the sect? Especially the face of Huashan sword leader Feng Tianhua, whose face was white at one moment and livid at another. He was extremely angry while holding the long sword in his hand, and his eyes were staring straight at the Mediterranean Sea aside. Among the Huashan disciples in this group, there is his own grandson, who is the only child of his Feng family. Nonsense. Mediterranean realized that something was wrong, and started to feel angry. He immediately scolded the disciple angrily, What are your intentions? How dare you talk nonsense? However, as soon as Mediterranean finished speaking, before the disciple could defend himself, more and more survivors from the human inn in the distance were already rushing over. When they saw the elders of their master, they immediately knelt down and cried bitterly. Feng Tianhua raised his neck and looked out, but when he didn't see any Huashan disciples, his heart suddenly sank to the bottom. And the cries of these disciples, word by word, made Mediterranean feel his head pounding. He hurriedly explained, Everyone, we have always been here and never left. How could we do this? Someone must have framed this, put the blame on. Nonsense, the method used by that person is obviously the talisman planting technique of your Yuan Kai God sect. With the support of their elders, these disciples became bolder and pointed their fingers at the Mediterranean Sea. Everyone. At this time, the fourth prince couldn't stand it anymore and said in a deep voice, Everyone, listen to me. The Yuan Kai divine sect is our great northern barbarian section. How could we do such evil things? I'm afraid someone wants to fish in troubled waters. Please don't. Uncle Master. Before the fourth prince could finish his words, suddenly an old Taoist priest from the crowd behind him ran out and waved his hand towards the Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean was startled and frowned, Why are you here? As soon as these words came out, all the disciples pointed at Su Tong angrily and screamed at the elders around them, It's him, it's him. This is the person I saw with my own eyes. Hey, you little bastards are still alive, haha, just in time. If you don't take the road to heaven, there will be no way to hell to break in. Uncle Master, fourth prince, I don't think there is any need for poisonous wine, just rely on Pandeo and Uncle Master. By joining forces, we can capture them and give them to the fourth prince to refine into a magical elixir. Su Tong pinched his beard and said with a smile. Not to mention the leaders and seniors of these sects, even Yelaki's eyes widened and he roared, Han Fizi, you are crazy. After hearing the fourth prince calling out the old Taoist name, everyone's expressions became even more ugly. Someone sarcastically said with a half smile, no wonder you invite us to drink with such enthusiasm. Old thief Di, you risk your life. Feng Tianhua, the leader of the Huashan sword on the side, was completely angry. He raised his hand and thrust his sword towards the Mediterranean Sea. Mediterranean kept backing away and dodging, saying hurriedly, misunderstanding, Brother Feng, wait a moment. But Su Tong on the side didn't think the matter was big enough. Seeing Feng Tianhua take action, he summoned the Vitality Treasure Gourd and jumped up, you dare to hit my uncle, I will fight with you. As he spoke, he threw the Vitality Treasure Gourd in his hand above his head. The mouth of the gourd was hanging upside down, and a bright red light spurted out from the gourd. It was the Vitality Gourd's active skill Shen Yuan Gourd Cannon. Bang bang bang. 3 consecutive rays of red light went straight towards the surviving disciples. This time the scene became completely chaotic. The people who had been targeting Zhang Yishan instantly turned their guns and started killing Su Tong, Feng Tianhua, and the fourth prince crazily. When Zhang Yishan and Zhao Yuanzhen saw this situation, they were also full of question marks. However, Zhang Yishan didn't care about that. Everyone was in chaos, and no one could even maintain the formation. He immediately jumped up and fled the place quickly. Before leaving, I didn't forget to take a look in Su Tong's direction, but I saw this man retreating while fighting, heading straight towards the direction of the Vitality Chariot. Seeing the Vitality Chariot getting closer and closer, Su Tong's eyes gleamed and he shouted, Fourth Prince, be careful, a poor man is coming. This is the third update today. I owed you an update last time, so I'll make up for it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 947. Seeing Su Tong's disguised old Taoist priest rushing towards him, Yelaki's expression changed drastically and he pointed at Su Tong, fire. Kill him. Yelaki had met this old guy Han Fizi many times, and he knew best the virtues of that old ghost. This man was definitely not Han Fizi, and someone must have framed him. Besides, even if he is really Han Fizi, this guy has ruined his own affairs, so he cannot let him go today. Yelaki thought decisively and acted like the wind. With a command, the chariot turned on the spot, and the muzzles of the guns protruded from the side, aiming at Su Tong. Kaka kaka. The boilers on the Yuankai chariot rotated, and a large amount of Yuankai was injected into these cannons. Following Yelaki's order, a bright light suddenly flashed from the muzzle, making the surrounding world dark, followed by an extremely bright, a bright light comparable to the sun and the moon gathered violently at the muzzle. Su Tong's pupils tightened, and after sensing the crisis, his decisive figure quickly retreated to the side. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a beam of light as thick as an arm emitted a rumbling sound and shot towards Su Tong. As soon as this ray of light appeared, it suddenly took away the color between heaven and earth and left only black and white. This is light born entirely for the purpose of destruction. Especially the rumbling sound of cannons, as if countless things were exploding in the beam of light. Hearing the sound of this cannon, it gives people a feeling that the sky is falling and the earth is collapsing, as if all the magic techniques are being annihilated in it. It cannot be viewed with common sense. Its power is enough to penetrate everything. It is worthy of being the supreme treasure of the Yuankai divine sect and a true divine weapon. If Zhang Yishan had not betrayed Longhu Mountain and held the treasure in his hands, attracting the fourth prince and the others. I am afraid we would have been passive. Facing the vitality cannon that penetrated everything, Su Tong did not dare to be careless at all. He no longer hid his strength, shrank his feet to the ground, and quickly dodged around the leaders and masters around him. At this time, many masters were caught off guard and were immediately hit hard by the vitality cannon, or even directly broken into pieces. In this way, the fourth prince's ambition was confirmed. Su Tong was seen dodging, while cooperating with the bombardment of the vitality cannon. He turned around and shot out 2 vitality sword lights to kill the 2 men. So to outsiders, it looks more like the Yuankai divine sect is killing everyone. Brother. Seeing the tragic death of his senior brother, someone glared at the fourth prince fiercely. The Yuankai divine sect. You are so insane. I will fight with you northern barbarians until death over this matter. After saying that, he turned around and quickly fled out with a few surviving disciples. Asshole. Seeing this, Yelaki's expression changed drastically. Now, the yellow mud fell off his crotch. He couldn't explain the reason. Once this matter spreads, both the Yuankai God sect and the entire northern barbarians will become a thorn in the eyes of the people in the world. Sting in eyes. You must know that these people's sects are still there, and they must have the background to sit in command. If they really accept this bloody account, once these Jianghu sects side with Tianqian in the future, their northern barbarians will be able to passive. When he thought of this, the anger on Yelaki's face gradually dissipated, and his eyes became calmer. He knew that he had fallen into someone else's trap, but it was irreversible, and he couldn't let these people leave alive. Kill them all. The 4 words spat out from Yelaki's mouth were as cold as frost. The abdominal plate armor of the Yuankai chariot was pulled open, revealing the core furnace, which actually sucked the rocks under the chariot into Yuankai, causing the rocks around the Yuankai chariot to shatter in a moment. For a moment, the entire Hutu mountain shook violently, as if it was about to collapse at any moment. Wisps of scorching divine light were seen rippling on the chariot, and the terrifying aura seemed to destroy the world at any time. Even Su Tong felt a great sense of crisis in his heart. I won't play with you anymore. Seeing this, Su Tong knew that his goal this time had been achieved, so he immediately stopped staying and quickly turned around and fled out. In fact, he also thought about taking this opportunity to use the 9 Immortals Cauldron to kill these people in one fell swoop. Whether it's a martial artist or a prince of the northern barbarians, Su Tong has read the script and knows that according to the original script, none of these people are good. But at this moment, when he saw the vitality chariot emitting a scorching glow, Su Tong knew that this matter could not be done. This vitality chariot was no small matter. Although the 9 Immortals formation was strong, the 9 Immortals Cauldron was not perfect after all. He did not dare to rush into it without full confidence. Expose this trump card. In addition to this vitality chariot, Su Tong also has a feeling. This feeling is very vague and cannot be explained. He feels that there is a force that has not yet appeared, but is just observing here quietly. This vague feeling is extremely obscure, and there is no trace when you feel it carefully, but it always lingers in your heart. The more this happened, the more fearful Su Tong became. He didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly rushed out of Hutu Mountain. Boom! As soon as Su Tong's front foot rushed out of Hutu Mountain, the entire Hutu Mountain began to collapse. Boss, what happened? Gao Zhou and Chang Wogu were hiding outside Hutu Mountain. They looked at the scene of landslides and ground cracking in front of them from a distance, and their hearts were extremely shocked for a moment. Quick, take that old guy and run back. When Su Tongzi came and said something, the earth was turned upside down behind him. Looking back, he saw the vitality chariot rising slowly among the collapsed rocks, and the chariot emitted a scorching bright light. A strong light gushes out from the belly of the vitality chariot, and immediately pierces the ground directly, and all the essence of the earth is immediately drawn into the vitality chariot. This guy is really not a good person, Su Tong thought, something bad in his heart. He didn't expect the other party to be so cruel. Stop. At this time, a middle-aged man chased Su Tong with a sword. The long sword in his hand drew a crescent-like sword light and took Su Tong's head straight. Su Tong saw that the opponent was just a Taoist, so he didn't take him seriously. He jumped sideways and lightly dodged the sword. He turned around and sneered, "If you don't run away earlier, you are really not afraid of death. To kill my disciple, today I am." Boom. Before the other party finished speaking, a huge crack suddenly tore open from the ground, and the man was caught off guard and fell directly into the abyss and disappeared without a trace. Su Tong shook his head and cupped his hands into the abyss. "Brother, I asked you to leave early. I didn't expect you to leave so early. I admire you, I admire you." Then he raised his head and took a look, only to see that the cracks on the ground were getting bigger and bigger, and they began to spread around like a spider web. If this continued, I am afraid that the entire area of 100 miles would be sunk. This fourth prince was indeed a ruthless character, so ruthless that in order to kill people and silence them, he would simply bury everything within 100 miles into the earth. Seeing the mountains collapse and the ground crack, the earth dragon turns over. The strange feeling in Su Tong's heart became stronger and stronger. Amitabha. Finally, with the sound of the loud Buddhist sound, Su Tong felt relaxed. It was as if the strong strange feeling had found an outlet to vent, and he couldn't help but let out a long breath. Sure enough, there was an expert spying secretly. Fortunately, I didn't do it rashly, otherwise I would have suffered a big loss now. Su Tong said in his heart that he was lucky. Looking up, I saw the dark clouds parting in the sky and the brilliant Buddha's light penetrating through the clouds. A big hand of Buddha's light fell from the sky and hit the Vitality chariot directly. Amitabha, the fourth prince is acting in such a rebellious manner and killing all living beings in all directions. This may be against the laws of nature. The poor monk Gozang asks the fourth prince to take away his magical powers and calm down the war. The vast sound of sutras accompanied by one person's whisper rippled in the sky. Everyone's eyes lit up when they heard the sound, and they shouted excitedly, "It's the divine monk of the East China Sea." At this time, Dichu, the leader of the Yuankai god sect, also returned to the Yuankai battleship. Facing the big hand covering the sky above his head, he snorted, "Bald donkey, why are you not staying in your East China Sea?" Mediterranean said. He opened his palms and absorbed a large amount of essence from the Vitality chariot into his body. He then used the Vitality hand seal again and slapped it against the big hand in the sky. Boom! For a moment, the two palms faced each other, and a layer of dazzling golden waves exploded in the sky. Amitabha, good, good. The clouds and mist in the sky dispersed, and the Buddha's big hand vaguely transformed into a 9-foot-long Buddha in the air. The Buddha used the sun, moon, and stars as cassocks, a golden halo on his head, and sat on a Vajra lotus platform. As soon as the Buddha's Dharma appeared, he sat down fiercely on the chariot of vitality and directly smashed the chariot into the depths of the earth, where it would never be able to stand up again. Boom! After the vitality chariot was suppressed by Buddha, it suddenly exploded. An earth-shattering bang. The shock was so loud that everyone's ears felt as if they were pricked by needles, and a hole seemed to be smashed out of the ground. The vitality chariot broke out of the ground, rushed up to the clouds, and then quickly escaped from the place. Hey, it is indeed the most precious treasure for teaching. Seeing the vitality chariot escaping in the distance, Su Tong felt envious in his heart. This thing is extremely powerful. A random strike can be a strike of God-killing control activated with 100,000 script points. My 9 Immortals Cauldron may not be able to kill it, unless I can remove the hole in the 9 Immortals Cauldron to make up for it. If we can strengthen the wave, then killing these people will be no problem. Of course, Su Tong only thought about this idea. Not to mention the big hole in the 9 Immortals Cauldron, which he couldn't fix. The cost of just strengthening it was an astronomical figure. Seeing that the situation in front of him had begun to calm down, Su Tong did not dare to stay longer and quickly rushed to meet Gao Zhou and the others. Quick, change clothes. When Su Tong returned, Gao Zhou and Chang Liuja carried the unconscious old Taoist priest forward and saw him quickly take off his clothes and take off his jack mask, revealing his true face. At the same time, he put the Taoist robe on the old Taoist body again, and even stuffed the vitality treasure gourd into this guy's arms. Su Tong took the initiative to disperse everything in the day and night, and the original fierce aura on his body began to quickly return to its original appearance. At this time, Gao Zhou took out a silver needle and plunged it into Lao Dao's thigh. The sharp stinging pain made Lao Dao wake up suddenly. Opening his eyes, after looking at Su Tong and the others, the old Taoist's pupils tightened, and he immediately rolled on the ground, stood up, and hit the three of them with a vitality talisman with his backhand. Boom! 2 talismans exploded in front of the three of them, and the old Taoist priest bit off his own finger, sprayed out a stream of black mist, wrapped the body around and rushed into the sky. That was the moment he rushed into the air. There was a loud roar from behind, "The Yuankai cult is here, everyone, come and kill them quickly." The sound spread throughout the country. The old Taoist priest was startled when he heard the words. He saw people running towards him from all around. His head was buzzing. Before he could understand what was happening, he suddenly felt a hot murderous aura coming from behind him. He immediately looked back and saw a long sword like white jade reflected in his pupils. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 948. Puff. The world was spinning in front of his eyes, and in a trance, the old Taoist saw an evil tiger swallowing a snow hare with its mouth open. Blood spurted out along the tiger's mouth, and his consciousness gradually dissipated. Before the head fell to the ground, Su Tong lifted the evil head in one hand. I looked up and took a look at my luck, and it actually increased a bit. The big tiger then hid in the vast white mist, seemingly still waiting for its next prey. At this time, other surviving members of the sect had already rushed over. When they saw the bloody corpse in Su Tong's hands, they couldn't help but cursed, "Bah, I really took advantage of him. Hateful." Although the old Taoist priest died, everyone was still filled with resentment. Some people saw the gourd on the old Taoist's waist and wanted to reach out and pick it off. But as soon as he stretched out his hand, he saw Su Tong falling from the sky, and a wave of pure yang righteousness surged from his body, just like the mighty yang, knocking the opponent 3 feet away. Hiss! Everyone was shocked. This time someone realized that the young man in white clothes in front of them turned out to be a master of Dao Dao. Who is this person and why have I never heard of him? Yes, this body of pure yang energy is amazing. I met Master Zhu Yang many years ago, and I have never had such pure yang energy. No wonder this person can easily kill this thief. This pure yang qi is the nemesis of evil in the world. Everyone was talking about it, but they saw Su Tong throwing the old Taoist priest's head on the ground expressionlessly, picking up the vitality treasure gourd on the body's waist, and his eyes gradually became moist. He stroked the gourd with his palm, and placed the gourd on his heart with the corners of his lips trembling slightly. "Little sister. Senior brother has avenged you. It's all his fault that you were killed by this traitor. From now on, senior brother will never leave you again." When everyone heard him murmuring, they immediately looked at each other, feeling emotional and empathizing with each other. I think they took their disciples on a trip this time, and originally wanted to come here to see the world, but they didn't dare to let them rashly participate in the siege of Zhongyishan, so they could only let them wait at the human inn for the time being. But he didn't expect this farewell to be an eternal farewell between heaven and man. Su Tong's deep affection inevitably made many people secretly sad. I knew this was another sad story that made people sigh, but I couldn't bear to ask so many details. Anyway, That's pretty much what I figured out. After all, storytellers and book writers like this kind of story the most. People who hear it often can have more than a dozen versions in their minds. For a moment, everyone could only watch Su Tong carefully put the gourd into his pocket, and no one had any objections to this. Who can let people have big fists? Anyone who has entered the step in the land of land gods will be among the top 10 masters in the world. Just like Huashan sword leader Feng Tianhua, he is only ranked 8th, Yuan Kai cult master Mediterranean is ranked 5th, and the East China Sea divine monk just now is ranked 6th. However, after what happened today, I am afraid that this divine monk's ranking will need to be improved. Everyone, the Yuan Kai cult colludes with the northern barbarian royal family, which will definitely cause trouble in the world. We must kill these evil thieves. We will not be punished if we do not avenge this. I would like to trouble you to inform the world about today's matter. The Yuan Kai cult and the northern barbarian royal family must pay the price. Gao Zhou and Chang Wuju hid aside and started to set the pace. These words spoke to everyone's hearts. In the human massacre, many of the elite seeds of some sects were killed, which was a fatal blow to any sect. To be a qualified disciple, it takes 10 or even 20 years of training. This time, everything was destroyed by the Yuan Kai God section. It would be strange not to fight hard. At this moment, Su Tong suddenly pushed down the Jinshan Jade pillar and bowed to everyone. Seniors and Junior Yang Hong, I am a member of Suankan. The northern barbarians destroyed my country and killed my people. Thanks to my master, he took me away and taught me his skills. This time I went down the mountain with my junior sister and planned to join the army to avenge the country, but he did not want to cause the tragic death of his junior sister. The hatred of the country and the family, Yang Hong must avenge it in this life. Please be a witness. No matter who can kill the leader of the Yuan Kai Shen cult, I, Yang Hong, make an oath here. He must be shattered into pieces to repay his kindness. What can unite people quickly is never love, but hatred. Blood hatred and national hatred are the best glue in the world. Just like in reality, you and Bangza don't like each other, but if someone suggests that we should scold Xyli, then you will find that you and Bangzi are surprisingly consistent on some points of view. As a result, under Su Tong's guidance, everyone's hatred towards the Yuan Kai sect and the northern barbarians reached an unprecedented level. So much so that the original hot search suddenly changed from Zhang Yishan's rebellion from Longhu Mountain to the current crusade against the northern barbarian cult. It can only be said that Zhang Yishan's luck is really good. Now I am afraid that no one has the intention to chase him anymore. According to the script, even if Zhang Yishan escapes death today, he will still be at the end of his life. According to the script, he will complete the process of increasing the treasure of the white ape and hand over the treasure in his hand to Su Tong and others. Now that the plot is disturbed by Su Tong, like a storm rolled up by the wings of a butterfly, it begins to slowly move towards an unforeseen path. This is probably something that the script world never expected. Brother Yang, are you planning to join the army? Are you going to do something big? An old man holding a short sword stepped forward and asked Su Tong. Exactly. Now that the northern barbarians and Tiangan are at war, I will definitely join the fight to avenge my country and my enemies. Su Tong said it righteously. If it were normal, everyone would advise Su Tong based on the experience of their predecessors in the world. After all, few people in the world would be willing to join the imperial court. On the one hand, they are unwilling to be subject to this control. After all, with their status in the world, local officials do not dare to neglect them even if they do not have official positions. However, once they enter officialdom, their own luck will be restricted by officialdom. On the other hand, the court is more dangerous than Jianghu, not to mention that whether it is Tianqian or Bumen, there is already an earthly immortal in charge of these two courts. They are all highly respected ministers with great national destiny. Under such circumstances, joining the imperial court is not a wise choice. But today was different. When they learned that Su Tong was going to join Tianqian, someone immediately took out a jade pendant and handed it to Su Tong. Our taking Jianmen has a certain relationship with the Su family. It can be regarded as kinship, little brother. Although your strength is extraordinary, if you want to be free from the constraints of officialdom, you must have a backer. I give you this thing. You can take it out when necessary, and it may save you a lot of trouble. With the old man taking the lead, others also expressed their support, saying that they would return to the sect immediately and send a letter to Tianqian in the name of the sect to support him. This harvest really surprised Su Tong, but it was also a good thing. With the support of these people in the world, I don't have to worry about being constrained when I return to the main force of Tiangan. Thinking of this, Su Tong took a deep breath with an emotional expression. He resisted the urge to send them to see his grandpa and bowed to everyone. Then he took Gao Zhou and Chang Wogu to say goodbye to everyone, then turned around and left. After Su Tong and others left, everyone rushed back to their sects to report the news. Boss, we made a lot of money on this trip. It's a pity that we couldn't kill the fourth prince. If you had brought me and Lao Chang with you, you might have had a chance to kill them. The three of them rode on a war horse and drove back slowly. At this moment, Li Bo and the others had already sent news on the team channel, saying that they had rushed back to the main force of Tianqian. The main mission can be completed only after being received by the main commander. It is precisely because of this that the three of them are not in a hurry. I plan to wait until Li Bo completes the main mission and then take a stroll outside depending on the situation. When Su Tong heard Gao Zhou's words, he just frowned and said in the team channel, "It's not that I don't want to, but that I can't." The opponent's vitality chariot seems to have the power to break through the formation barrier, plus the fourth prince is with half of the country's fortunes on his side. It would be difficult to kill him. Luck is really hard to explain clearly. But the higher the strength, the more important it is. Otherwise, we are all earthly immortals, why should we be able to distinguish between high and low? While the three of them were talking in the team channel, Su Tong suddenly pulled the reins and looked sideways at the pine forest beside him. That strange feeling hit me again. This feeling, could it be? Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly, and he suddenly had a guess in his mind. He immediately jumped off the horse and said to Gao Zhou and the other two, "Wait for me here." Then he walked into the pine forest. When he pushed aside a patch of grass, he saw an old monk sitting cross-legged on the stone platform, holding a string of rosary beads in his hands and meditating with his eyes closed. The old monk recited the scriptures silently, and his whole body became integrated with the surrounding world and trees, as if he was in the world, and as if he could jump out at any time. This is the unique aura of Jean Dao Earth Immortal. Seeing Su Tong approaching, the old monk opened his eyes with peaceful eyes, clasped his hands, and bowed to Su Tong. "Amitabha, poor monk Guzang, pay your respects to the venerable sir." Su Tong had previously lost most of his title cards to the wishing tree, but he did not lose the title of venerable. After all, this was an exclusive series of titles. Although he was a pure Yang Kung Fu, he also had Buddhist magical powers, so he kept this title. It will do no harm to yourself. Therefore, it is reasonable for the old man to call Su Tong sir. "Amitabha, master, you're welcome. Just now, master used the method of subduing demons." The power of King Kong's angry eyes really impressed the younger generation. Su Tong didn't know why the other party was waiting for him here, but he had the title of venerable, and he was not afraid that the old monk would take action against him. What's more, he had a body of pure yang, but he had nothing to do with the Yuankai sect. Therefore, he was extremely polite in his words. After all, this old monk was able to smash the Yuankai divine sect and escape in a car with one blow, and his strength was also extraordinary. However, what the old monk said next made Su Tong's heart sink. Hearing this, the old monk shook his head repeatedly. The poor monk was just relying on the power of Buddha.
he is in no way comparable to the Venerable One. He used some tricks to kill the human massacre. The hat is placed on the head of Yuan Kai-shen cult. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 949. When Su Tong heard this, his face showed no surprise. They are both earth immortals, but this old monk's luck is far better than his own. Looking around, his luck is like the East Sea, endless, and there is something in the waves that suppresses this luck for a long time. The Venerable was born with a wise eye, and he has also cultivated divine eyes. It is indeed a blessing for me as a Buddhist. Facing Su Tong's prying eyes, the old monk not only showed no anger at all, but generously moved his luck away from his head, revealing the treasure hidden in his luck. It's actually a temple. This time it was Su Tong's turn to be surprised. I saw that among the old monk's luck, there was a golden temple suppressing the waves of the East Sea. Amid the old monk's gentle tapping, a loud chanting sound was heard accompanied by the roaring waves. The sound became louder and louder, and for a moment it seemed as if it was about to engulf Su Tong's five senses. Revealing the truth, Maha uncovering the truth, Maha Maha uncovering the truth, Polo uncovering the truth, Para uncovering the truth. Su Tong felt his energy flash, and the world in front of him was changing. Is this the magical power of Buddhism? Or is it the world of Sumeru? Could it be that this old monk wants to save me? Su Tong's mind is clear, and a beautiful light of wisdom emerges from the orifices of his heart. Although he is trapped in his method, his self-awareness is not troubled at all. Not only is it not affected by the scriptures, it is also clearer than before. He saw that the heaven, earth, and the universe seemed to be condensed in front of him. At this moment, he was the Buddha, with supreme enlightenment. The vast world was in his eyes. At a glance, he could see the sun, moon, stars, vegetation, mountains and rocks, wild beasts, fields, seas and rivers, all tangible things. Objects, intangible objects, etc., all matter, endless power, all appeared in front of him. This powerful power enriched Su Tong's body and mind, as if he was the ruler of this world at this moment. With just one thought, he could destroy this world, rebirth, or even transform it into a new world. The way you want it to be. But Su Tong is no longer the Amon he used to be. Not even the evil god's method of seizing his body can shake his mind, let alone the fact that he has a heart like glazed jade and an exquisite 7 orifices. Saying it has no effect at all. But he knew that the old monk's move was not malicious to harm him, so he did not resist. As the consciousness in front of him broke through the sea, a golden bridge penetrated from the depths of the East China Sea, welcoming Su Tong into the majestic palace. Boom! The bells rippled, and the Buddha looked at the world with his eyes. In an instant, Su Tong's consciousness merged with the Buddha, and he looked out at the outside world through the Buddha's eyes. The huge waves of the East Sea are rolling, but there are countless people, gods, ghosts, and monsters floating and struggling in the waves. The world is like a sea of suffering, and the Dharma is like an ark, but where is the other shore? A questioning voice reached Su Tong's ears. It was like a torture of his soul. Regarding this answer, Su Tong was not confused at all. He just recalled what he had seen after becoming a player and said, "When I was young, I was ignorant, and ignorant a piece of candy was enough to satisfy me. My behavior was innocent, but my humanity was still undeveloped. When I was young, I had lust for wealth, sex, power, love, hatred, and hatred. My inner childlike innocence was hidden in my heart, lest others laugh at my childishness. When I am old, the years have passed, I look back with white hair, and I have a great enlightenment. My whole life has passed by in vain, and it is gone in a blink of an eye. I know that my time is running out, so I simply tear off the mask. There is nothing I can do for old age. Although I have regained my innocence, I have lost my virtue. This is for great evil." Having said that, Su Tong continued, "The world is like this,
but it has not always been like this. The founders of a country will die without changing their intentions, those who founded the country will not change their integrity even if they are poor, those who defend the country will never forget their loyalty until the end of their lives, those who have faith will never do evil. Also, Su Tong's voice reached the ground and instantly overwhelmed the sound of chanting. The sound resounded 100 times, 1,000 times, and 10,000 times throughout the entire Mahavira hall. But instead, he felt unprecedented peace in his heart. The original incarnation of the Buddha gradually separated from his body, and finally his consciousness returned to his own body from the bursts of chanting sutras. Amitabha. The old monk in front of him clasped his hands together, and looked at Su Tong with a smile on his face. The Venerable Master's clear mind and nature are sufficient to see the Tathagata. I admire you, I admire you. Buddhism is good at debating, not to mention the disputes with Confucianism and Taoism, but Buddhism is also divided into Mahayana and Hinayana. But Su Tong's words transcended sectarian disputes. Faith itself has no section. People who have faith have the other side in their hearts. For their own faith, everything is right and wrong. This not only explains the so-called other side, but also explains what Su Tong did. Even Guzang, the divine monk, could not say that Su Tong was wrong for the moment, because if he opened his mouth to argue, there would be no way around it. Su Tong's theory, in the final analysis, is just that you fight for your beliefs, and I can just turn around and leave without arguing with you for my beliefs. Therefore, I am not afraid of gangsters fighting, but I am afraid that gangsters are educated. After all, the master forces him to study every day, and it is not for nothing. With the blessing of Kikiao's exquisite heart, Su Tong is not able to deal with this old monk. Master, you're welcome. If nothing happens, let's say goodbye. Seeing that he had passed the test, Su Tong just didn't want to get too entangled with this monk. Since the other party had nothing to say, he definitely didn't dare to expose his shortcomings. Otherwise, even if he failed in this script task, he would still have to fight with him. The old monk refused to die. Amitabha, Your Majesty, please do as you please. The monk dare not stop you. If you have free time in the future, you can ask the Reverend to go to Lingyun Temple to discuss Zen with the monk. Obviously Guzang was still a little dissatisfied with Su Tong's statement, and invited him to go to Lingyun Temple in the future and find another opportunity to regain his place. Easy to say. Farewell. Su Tong waved his hand, turned around and left, thinking, only two idiots go looking for you again. After Su Tong left, Guzang sat on the stone and meditated for a long time. Until it was getting late, he finally couldn't think of how to interpret this sentence. He could only sigh, well, we can't let this matter go. Let's let it go. I'll go to Yunjing Mountain to invite my senior brother to come. After saying that, Guzang stood up and ran straight towards Yunjing Mountain. Looking at his appearance, he seemed determined to regain his place with Su Tong. At this moment, Su Tong and the other two were already heading towards Langshan along the path. On the way, Su Tong did not mention the argument he had with Guzang. In fact, his words were somewhat suspicious of being a rogue. After all, according to his explanation, members of evil cults or people with evil nature love to kill people and set fires, rape and plunder. But I have to say that it is easier for these people to make their thoughts clear. With clear thoughts, a happy mood, eating, drinking and having fun, you will naturally feel more alive and nourished. On the other hand, those who are kind-hearted, with their pure nature, do not want to see others suffer even though they are not living a good life. In the end, they suffer themselves, and become more and more tired as time goes by. Instead, they are easily influenced by worldly concepts and do not end up with a good ending. Maybe this is the so-called truth that good people don't live long, and disasters stay for thousands of years. Seeing a village ahead, Su Tong and the others slowed down their journey. Let's find a place first and take a rest. It just so happens that by this time, our wishing tree is almost ready. I'll take some time to go back and take a look. This meeting with the ancient Tibetan monk reminded Su Tong about the wishing tree, so he planned to take advantage of this free time to go back to the master's place for a stroll. At the same time, in a mountain forest, a huge chariot was seen, rushing all the way to the south. The cracked mountains and rocks along the way made the birds and beasts in the mountain forest flee in panic. Yeliki fiercely threw the wine glass in his hand to the ground. If I don't take revenge for this, I swear I won't be a human being. During this trip, he originally wanted to take the opportunity to win over Longhu Mountain and make friends with people in the world, which would increase his chances of winning in the future. But he didn't expect that he would be tricked by someone. Not only did he not win the treasure, but he also suddenly became known as the human murder case. Yeliki could even feel that his luck had been hit by this incident, and a lot of luck evaporated in an instant. You must know that you are carrying half of the country's destiny with you, and the luck of your own evaporation affects the country's foundation. Even if it only evaporates a little bit, it is extremely bad news for the entire northern barbarians. Back then, Su Lai had lost 10% of his luck due to Zhang Xian's 3 moves, causing Tianqian to miss the opportunity to annex Suancan and unify the north and the south. I don't know if the loss of luck this time will have any impact on the northern barbarians' conquest of Tiangan. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Yeliki looked at Dizhou aside and said, "What's going on with your nephew? Although this person has been faked, the gourd in his hand cannot be faked. I didn't let him go. Have you gone with the defeated soldiers who surrounded and killed Tianqian with Abeobeo? How come he appears here?" Mediterranean was very ashamed when he heard this. This matter was closely related to their Yuan Kai-shen cult, and Mediterranean was filled with questions. Just when he didn't know how to explain to the fourth prince, Yeliki suddenly thought of something. "Calculate for me where the defeated troops of Tiangan are now. I want to surround and suppress them myself." After hearing this, Mediterranean hurriedly invited people to bring in the Zhuzhushinyan Tianji pen. This was originally the treasure of the northern barbarian Dian divine sect, but this sect was wiped out by their Yuankai divine sect, so this treasure fell into their hands and could be used once every 3 hours. This time we were able to find Zhang Yishan hiding in Hudishan so quickly, precisely because of the help of this treasure. I saw Mediterranean injecting a large amount of essence from the vitality chariot into the divine disc, and immediately moved the divine disc to make calculations. After calculating for a moment, Mediterranean suddenly glared and thought to himself, "How could this happen? What, is there any accident?" Yeliki noticed the strange look on Mediterranean's face and asked, "Your Highness, the defeated army was divided into 2. One has returned to the main force of Tiangan, and the other, is not far from us." Hearing Mediterranean's answer, Yeliki raised his eyebrows slightly and played with the wine glass on the table with his fingers, as if he was deep in thought. The human massacre, the framed and fake Hanfiza, Abeobeo failed to encircle and suppress. After Yeliki carefully connected these questions together, an answer had already appeared in Yeliki's mind, and he suddenly said to himself with a smile, "Okay, the plot is on Xiao Wang." After saying that, he stood up suddenly. "Let me see who it is that dares to disturb Taisui, change the route, and catch up with me at full speed." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 950. Master, Master, I'm back. Pushing open the courtyard door, Su Tong felt strange. When he entered, he saw no trace of the old man. He wondered if the old guy was lazy. As a result, when I walked in and took a look, I found that my master and master were not at home. Instead, the master's wife and the goddess were sitting in the pavilion. "Greetings to master, madam."
When Su Tong saw his master's wife, he went up to him with a smile, bowed to his wife, and looked around. Master's wife, where are my master and grandpa? Why isn't the old Taoist here? The old man took them to Fuzi City. It seems that he wanted to do something for the old man. I don't know the details. The mistress brought the tea to Su Tong and said. The goddess on the side jumped on the topic and said, I know that the old Taoist's yang life has expired. If he wants to return yang, he needs to increase his yang life first. Hearing this, Su Tong felt relieved immediately. When the eldest princess and the old Taoist were willing to stay and help him, not only because the master used thunderous means to deprive them of part of their souls, but also because the master promised each of them something. The eldest princess has already left, and the old Taoist is probably preparing to leave too. I think this is what the master promised him back then. As the last batch of figures from the old era. The old Taoist and the eldest princess are undoubtedly the best among them, even the pinnacle of the contemporary era. Their low cultivation is not because they have poor qualifications, but because of the limitations of the times and environment. Just like on a test paper, the full score is 100 points. If others can get 99 points, they are extremely talented. If they can get 100 points, they only have 100 points on the paper. The old Taoist is already halfway to enlightenment. As long as the soul returns to the body, he can take that step. But his step is too late. The life of Yang has reached the end of his life. Even if he makes a breakthrough, it will be difficult to take another step forward. This is also the reason why the old Taoist has been reluctant to take back his physical body. But if the master can find a way to extend the old man's life, it will naturally be a great opportunity for the old man. Hey, if I had known earlier, I would have told master in advance. Su Tong felt a pity in his heart. The person who could increase Yang Shao must be the judge or the king of hell in the underworld. If she had known that her master had such a relationship, she should have asked her master to take her with him and check the information about his parents. But then he thought about it and thought about his name in Hades. After thinking about it carefully, he might as well forget it. There were some things that it was better not to come forward. Why, you have encountered some kind of difficulty. The old man told me before he left. If you encounter something difficult, I, as the master's wife, will not care whether you live or die. Seeing that Su Tong didn't speak, master's wife thought he was in trouble. However, master's hand has been feeling a little uncomfortable recently. Is this my apprentice? I saw the mistress raising her fingers, revealing her long black nails. Su Tong was suddenly startled. Onychomycosis. Screw you. When the master's wife heard this, she cursed, and the goddess beside her said, my godmother wants money, the more money, the better. All the money in my godfather's hand has been taken away by the old man, and my godmother can't do it. Got the money. Su Tong rolled his eyes. Good guy, if you want money, you need money. You said it so embarrassedly, as if you were polite to me. However, the words of the goddess made Su Tong realize that the master had taken away the money from his master a long time ago, and took the master and the old Taoist to the city of waste, probably just to provide the master with an opportunity to make extra money, and to make himself better. There is something to rely on. As expected, Zhang is still very old, and the master really does not miss anything, and he really takes good care of his own grandson. Thinking of this, he didn't dare to agree immediately. Instead, he asked the goddess, how much does the master's wife want? If it's not much, I can make up for it for the master's wife. The goddess stared at Su Tong innocently, her big and smart eyes blinking, and silently stretched out 5 fingers under the table. No more, just give me 30. Su Tong's eyes widened, thinking that the mother and daughter were trying to make the lion open their mouths. Unexpectedly, there were only 30 pieces. It seems that master didn't tell them about the money model I was holding. Thinking of this,
Su Tong patted the little hand of the goddess and said, "This price is too expensive." "What, 30 is too expensive for you?" Kuei Nu's eyes widened, and she looked like she wanted to rush forward and tear Su Tong to pieces. Su Tong quickly waved his hand, "Master wife, the price is certainly not expensive, let alone 30, 300 are not expensive, but it's not that I don't have that many on my hands." Su Tong said, calmly grabbing Tianu's little hand, pinching her little hand back, allowing her to stretch out only 2 fingers. Seeing this, the goddess frowned and said, "At least 10 cards are required, otherwise we won't make any money." Su Tong frowned and thought for a while before reluctantly nodding his head and agreeing. He took out 5 notes and put them on the table, and sent them to the master's wife as a deposit. With the other hand, he quietly put 10 notes into the hands of the goddess, who was so happy that her eyes almost turned into seams. The dimples on his face were almost laughing. After taking care of the master's wife and the goddess, Su Tong hurried to the backyard and asked Mr. May about the wishing tree. To his disappointment, none of the wishing trees they planted bloomed or bore fruit. At first, Su Tong thought the wishing tree was not suitable for the environment here. After asking, I found out that it was Mr. May who took good care of them. These 4 trees continued to grow during this period, becoming stronger and stronger, and each tree seemed to have many subtle differences. As for whether it could bloom in the end, what kind of fruit will be produced is unknown. This result made Su Tong both expectant and disappointed. The better the wishing tree grows, the stronger the fruit it will produce. But at this growth rate, it is still unknown when it will bloom and bear fruit. Mrs. May comforted Su Tong again and again, promising that he would take good care of them. As for the flowers blooming and bearing fruit, Su Tong would definitely be surprised. After receiving Mr. May's assurance, Su Tong felt relieved. Originally, he wanted to chat with Mr. May for a while longer, but then Su Tong suddenly had a whim and a very uncomfortable feeling came over him, forcing him to immediately leave the virtual and real world and rush back to reality. After Su Tong's figure escaped from the gap between reality and reality, he did not see the figures of Gao Zhou and Chang Liuzhu. Hoo. A cool breeze blew across my face, and the air exuded an uneasy atmosphere, as if there was some kind of power that caused the surrounding elements to riot. "Where are you? What happened?" Su Tong noticed the subtle changes in the air and hurriedly asked the 2 of them in the team channel. "Yes, people from the Yuan Kai-shen cult are here. I asked Lao Gao to move our horses away first. I'm keeping an eye on them at the entrance of the village." Chang Wahen responded. Hearing this, Su Tong opened the door and jumped onto the roof. He opened his eyes and saw at a glance the huge Vitality chariot on the other side of the mountain, which was speeding towards the village. Wherever they passed, they pushed mountains and reclaimed seas, and forcibly crushed a road to the sky. "Hey, it would be a pity not to pull this thing over and build a highway," Su Tong complained in his heart. At this time, his eyes noticed Yeliki on the deck of the chariot. This guy looked murderous, and he was obviously running towards him. Does he know that I was responsible for the human massacre? Su Tong held his chin and began to think about it. "Boss, what should we do? This guy can rush over without a stick of incense. Should we retreat or fight?" Chang Wogu was hiding in the dark, carefully observing this huge chariot, and at the same time calculating in his mind that he might be able to make a sneak attack. There was a light shield outside the Yuan Kai chariot, but to Chang Wogu it's not a problem. The black water dragon tooth in his hand can quietly cut a hole in the light shield and sneak in without alerting anyone. Su Tong glanced at the sky. It was getting late now, and it would be Yashi soon. Thinking of this, Su Tong already had an idea in his heart. "Lao Gao, I will lead the leader of the Yuan Kai-shen cult out later. You come and hold the chariot. You can take the opportunity to get in the chariot and wait for the opportunity. Leave the rest to me. Remember that our destiny is only in certain situations." Luck will reach an astonishing peak during the time, seize the opportunity, don't be careless, when the time passes, no matter whether it succeeds or not, run away immediately, and wait until the time comes to meet at Langshan. Okay. After Su Tong made the battle plan, Gao Zhou and Chang Wogu took action immediately. Su Tong walked slowly towards the direction of the chariot. Your Highness, according to calculations based on the Tianyang Divine Disc, the opponent is in this village. It's just that I'm not good at Yi Shui. I can only use this treasure to calculate a rough location. I think. Dizhou stared intently at the Tianyang Divine Disc in front of him, and when he was about to reveal his plan, Yeliki raised his eyebrows slightly and said, I don't think there's any need to forget it. As he spoke, he raised his head forward. Look, isn't the other party already here? Mediterranean heard the words and looked up, and sure enough, he saw Su Tong strolling in the distance. Although his figure was standing in the dark night, the pure yang energy in his body was as dazzling as the smoke of a wolf. Hey, this guy is really not afraid of death. Seeing that Su Tong came to the door on his own, Mediterranean Sea immediately walked to the bow of the ship and looked at Su Tong carefully. His heart skipped a beat and he was also surprised. Strange, how can there be such pure yang energy in the world? Is there any relationship between this person and Zhu Yang Genren in the desert? Mediterranean thought secretly. Zhu Yang Genren is ranked 5th in the world, but his real strength is no less than Xiaolishan and Su Lai, and even better than him. The most troublesome thing is his Zhu Yang Divine Dragon cover, which is the nemesis of his own vitality chariot. Thinking of this, Mediterranean still signaled the chariot to gradually slow down and came to a slow stop in front of Su Tong. At this moment, Yeliki also walked to the front of the chariot, looking at Su Tong, his brows furrowed. Although Yang Hong, played by Su Tong, has slightly rough skin, the scholarly temperament in his bones has not changed. In addition, at the same age as Yeliki, he is already among the best in the world, which inevitably makes him feel violent. Guess. My uncle said that there is no successor to the Tianqian royal family. In this generation, I am the protagonist of this world. Although this person has great achievements, his luck is far from being comparable to mine. He is destined to only become a stepping stone for me. Thinking of this, Yeliki calmed down, pushed away the Mediterranean Sea in front of him, stood at the front of the chariot, and looked down at Su Tong from a high position. Submit or die. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 951. Yeliki was just a Taoist, not to mention a Taoist. Even an enlightened heavenly person would not dare to be so presumptuous in the face of an earthly immortal. But Yeliki had the capital. As the appointed prince of the northern barbarians, he is the protagonist of this era. With half of the fortune of the northern barbarians in his country, and with Dizhou and other top men in the world protecting him, and with the chariot of vitality at his feet, even if Su Lai, the pillar of the heavenly stem kingdom, came in person, he would not be able to touch him at all. However, Su Tong seemed not to have heard Yeliki's provocation, and just looked at the leader of the Yuankai sect, Mediterranean. Clearing his throat, he was ready to ridicule and scold. Your Excellency is the leader of a sect, and the famous juniors of the Yuankai Shen sect have heard about it for a long time. It is indeed extraordinary to see him today. Su Tong was polite at first. After all, I didn't reach out to hit the smiling person. Even though Dizhou hated this person deeply, this person's words still gave him enough face. His face softened for a moment, and when he was about to respond, he didn't expect Su Tong to follow closely. His voice changed and he said, "It's just that Your Excellency is one of the best in the world, but for your own selfish interests, you are willing to surrender as a hawk of the northern barbarians, helping the people to do harm. For a mere 3 taels of money, you are groveling and flattering to a young boy in his 20s. With a group of disciples to serve as dogs, horses, pigs, and dogs, I dare to ask if you have some weird habits after practicing for many years. Su Tong's voice was very soft, and every word was as if he was reading a book. Each word was mellow and rippled over the wilderness with strong penetrating power. Good guy, these words were so shocking that Dichu was stunned for a second, and then his whole face became distorted. When had he, the leader of the church, ever been so humiliated? However, Su Tong's sarcasm continued. I think you see the power of the northern barbarians and want to use the power of the northern barbarians to increase the luck of your own section. Little do you know that above other people's temples, family ties, internal and external alliances, you have already blessed yourself with the fate of the northern barbarians and monopolized the national fortunes. You are the only one. Outsiders look inwardly. Are you really stupid, or do you want to find a chance to take your place? If it's the former, I didn't say it. If it's the latter, it's ridiculous and self-indulgent. It's both stupid and bad. It's a pity that such a great religion as the Yuankai God sect fell into the hands of rats like you. It really blinded the eyes of our ancestors. Su Tong's words were so loud that they could be heard clearly even from dozens of miles away. Dijo was furious when he heard this. He was scolded by Su Tong's words and his forehead was filled with blood. Asshole, I belong to the northern barbarian god cult, and I am the emperor. Go to hell, uncle. Su Tong didn't wait for Dijo to open his mouth to defend himself, cursed him with a curse word, turned around and ran away. It doesn't matter if you lose in the game, but the best effect is to directly greet your pig teammates and their families a few seconds before the game ends. Su Tong understood the truth well. He cursed loudly, made him feel comfortable and clear-minded, and did not give Dijo a chance to talk back. This simply maximized the effect of ridicule. Childish, how could the other party fall for such a trick? This has nothing to do with being fooled or not. After all, whoever trains hard to be the best in the world does not use his face to be scolded. Only those without strength will tolerate it. Why should those with strength suffer this injustice? If they are not citizens of the motherland, then they are saints. Dichu was obviously not a saint. He was about to explode when someone pointed at his nose and greeted him. Pointing at Su Tong's back, chase him and fire. Blast him to death. Seeing their leader's furious appearance, a group of Yuankai Shen cult disciples quickly began to turn the gears on the chariot. A dozen strong men twisted the winch, and the chariot quickly changed direction. Boom. However, the Vitality chariot suddenly trembled at this moment. What happened? Everyone looked down and saw that the ground suddenly collapsed, revealing a huge pit. A large number of corpses of northern barbarian warriors crawled out of the soil, clinging to the bottom of the Vitality chariot and swinging wildly. Walking corpse. Seeing this, Mediterranean frowned immediately, turned around and walked quickly to the rudder of the Yuankai chariot. While turning the rudder, he stimulated the Yuankai furnace of the Yuankai chariot. Kaka. The deck on the belly of the Vitality chariot was opened, revealing a red furnace. A storm of flames spurted out from the furnace, swallowing up the entire pit in an instant. But what Mediterranean didn't expect was that at this moment, the Vitality chariot suddenly sank, and the flames that spewed out instantly dimmed. This change exceeded expectations in the Mediterranean. Master, it's the hood of the Vitality furnace that's cracked. An elder hurried forward and said. Guzang's previous heavy blow smashed the Vitality chariot directly into the ground. Although it did not cause huge damage to the Vitality chariot, many subtle places had hidden injuries. Among them is the most important Vitality furnace, which is like the engine of this chariot. Even slight damage is enough to greatly weaken the power of the Vitality chariot. Hateful. Mediterranean cursed in his heart that he was unlucky. He wanted to go back to the Buman camp and repair it, but he didn't expect it to break at this time. Looking again, Su Tong-gren was almost gone, and his face turned cold immediately. Leave this place to you, I will chase him, and we can't let this person return to Langshan. When Yeliki saw this, he wanted to stop him, but Mediterranean was the first to say, "Don't worry, Your Highness, although this person is a slayer of Earth immortals, he is not lucky enough. I just need to entangle him, and you can come to me after you have repaired the chariot meet." Yeliki's brows moved slightly when he heard this, but he felt a little displeased in his heart. Although Dichu's tone was still respectful, his words were much tougher than before, and he was obviously a little irritated. After all, as the leader of a religion, even if he knew that the other party was deliberately irritating him, if he was just worried that the other party was cheating and was hiding here as a coward, then Dijo would really make the world laugh. Thinking of this, Yeliki didn't know what to say. He nodded, turned around and took a handful of silk-wrapped things from the arms of the attendant behind him and handed it to Dijo. "This person is cunning and insidious. He trapped us with these walking corpses and deliberately led the leader to come. He must be fully prepared. This thing will protect the leader and he will definitely be able to kill him." Dichu was shocked when he saw this. He carefully took the thing and uncovered the silk on it. An antique sword appeared in front of him. The sword was only 6 feet long, but there were layers of strange cloud patterns overlapping each other, as if it seems like there are tens of thousands of talismans imprinted on it. Mengtai sword. Seeing this sword, Dijo was shocked. This thing had been held in the arms of the attendant. He didn't know what it was, but he never expected that it was Xiaolishan's sword. It is rumored that it is a magic weapon left by the ancestors of the Xiao family. Xiaolishan relied on this sword to create a century-old national destiny for the northern barbarians. This thing is the most precious treasure in the world, ranking higher than the divine weapon of the Vitality Chariot. Hey, it turns out that a lifetime of hard work is not as good as reincarnation. Even Dijo couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He immediately stopped talking and carefully put the sword in his arms. "Don't worry, Your Highness, with this magic weapon, I will definitely kill this thief." After saying that, Dijo jumped out of the chariot and ran straight towards Su Tong. After Dijo left, the attendant who followed Yeliki calmly said behind Yeliki, "Dijo is a narrow-minded person, and he will not be able to take on big responsibilities in the future." Yeliki didn't say anything after hearing this, and strolled to the stove on the deck, staring at the stove in front of him. Just now, Dichu's eyes and words were indeed a bit disrespectful. In other words, it was the other party's words that touched the soft spot in Dichu's heart. Thinking of this, Yeliki nodded, suddenly raised his hand and grabbed the attendant's collar, and pushed him directly into the stove in front of him. Boom! The high temperature in the furnace almost instantly turned it into a burning person, and screams resounded from the furnace, but no one on the ship paid attention to it. Looking at the figure gradually disappearing in the firelight, Yeliki sneered, "Whether it is narrow-minded or not, it is not the turn of a slave like you who talks behind your back to judge, you idiot. Thieves, please leave." Hearing the roar behind him, Su Tong also slowed down his pace in time. But in a moment, De Kairen had already caught up with him, and the old guy's eyes turned red when he saw Su Tong. The human murder case has been pinned on the head of their Yuankai God section. This incident will definitely deal a severe blow to the Yuankai God section without killing this thief. How can we appease the grievances of the Yuankai God sect? When Su Tong saw the old thief chasing after him, he did not fight. He just struck at him with 2 sword beams and quickly fled away. Why did this old guy's luck suddenly become stronger? Su Tong frowned. Originally, Dichu's luck was not weak, but he had the bonus brought by the Vitality Chariot. But now without the Vitality Chariot, this guy's luck has gone even further. I saw the luck rising above his head, changing into thousands of weather conditions, as if something was acting as a counterweight to his luck. Under this situation, Su Tong was not willing to fight against the other party rashly. After all, the other party was luckier than himself. If he started fighting at this time, he would be the one to suffer. "Boy, Didn't you scold me happily just now? Why are you running away? Dichu's eyes were red, and he moved his figure left and right to avoid the sword light coming from Su Tong's projectile, and shot Su Tong behind him. Vital energy Mahamudra. Everything around him shattered, and billowing vitality gathered on Dichu's palm. As Dijo took the shot, a huge silver handprint tore through the void in an instant and appeared behind Su Tong. Su Tong pinched Sumuru with the fingertips of his left hand, and slapped it away with one hand. The void in front of him was distorted. The big hand that originally covered the sky gradually shrank to less than an inch in front of Su Tong. Then, Su Tong raised his hand and split it with a sword light. Fragments. Buddhist magical power. Dijo was shocked when he saw this and thought, how can this kid know the magical powers of Buddhism? Could it be that he has something to do with Buddhism? This idea is not an unfounded conjecture by Dijo. There are not many magical powers in Buddhism, but their mysteries are endless. You can learn them if you want to. Monk Guzang has not left the East China Sea for a long time since his mental state collapsed and he fell from number 4 in the world to number 6 in the world. But this time, he unexpectedly appeared in Hudishan and severely damaged his vitality chariot. The two are linked together, and it is difficult not to cause speculation. But just when Dijo was wondering whether Su Tong was a member of the Buddhist sect, or a chess piece of the Buddhist sect who wanted to stir up trouble in the world, Su Tong suddenly raised his hand and summoned two magical talismans, which were the Dragon Shutting Talisman and the Thunderstorm Talisman. The Thunderstorm Talisman arrived first, and for a moment a dazzling light flashed in front of him. Lefa. Dichu's mind changed drastically. He took over Zhang Yishan's Purple Sky Divine Thunder last time. Although it seemed like nothing happened on the surface, he actually suffered a big loss. His Grand Vitality Mudra cannot absorb lightning at all. It was entirely relying on the Vitality Chariot that the damage from the Thunder method was barely averted. Now facing Lefa again, Dijo inevitably had some psychological shadows in his heart. He didn't dare to confront him head-on, so he could only dodge in a hurry. At this time, the Dragon Shrinking Talisman also attacked from the side. The golden light is like a rainbow bridge, running through the void and reality. Vitality Storm. Seeing the suddenness of this thing, Dijo did not dare to be careless. His body suddenly changed into countless elemental bodies, and then quickly rotated to form a huge gust of wind. Wherever the gust of wind passed, everything was assimilated and torn apart. Countless elements merged into Jian Dichu's body. All things come from the same source, and vitality is reborn. Metal and stone are bones, vegetation is tendons, the sun and moon are my eyes, rivers are my blood, gems are my marrow, and soil is my skin. Dichu's consciousness chanted the vitality and nerves, turning everything into a part of itself. Suddenly the violent wind became stronger and stronger, even reaching the point where it reached the sky and the earth. Kill. Following Dichu's thought, in an instant, the surrounding world turned upside down, and the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth boiled, turning into the power of heaven and earth, and smashed towards Su Tong. In an instant, the surrounding sky collapsed, and the huge energy storm turned everything in the surrounding mountains and forests into a piece of gravel. But Su Tong was always able to advance and retreat in the storm. I saw golden dragon scales sprouting from his body, the Vajra supernatural power appeared between his eyebrows, the Vajra Dharma image holding a sword appeared behind him, and he squeezed the Vajra seal with his left hand and pushed it out with a palm. For a moment, the Buddha's light shone, lotuses grew under his feet, and most of the elemental storm in front of him was suddenly defeated. He has Buddhist magical powers, a thunder talisman, a pure yang power, and dragon scales growing on his body. What kind of monster is this person? The more Dijo fought, the more surprised he became. Neither of them used their full strength at the moment. Su Tong was just using feints and testing, but he had too many ways to attack, and the more Dijo fought, the more unpredictable he became. What origin? Su Tong retreated while fighting, and Dichu chased and fought. The two men made so much noise that many people got the news. Even a city in the distance has sounded the alarm. I saw 8 or 9 defenders on the wall struggling to climb up the city wall carrying a huge wooden barrel. This barrel weighed at least 1,000 kilograms. After they lifted it up, they swung a sledgehammer and hit it hard. It hit the barrel. Wow! The barrel broke, and a large amount of blood spilled out. The blood poured into specific brick gaps along the water tank on the city wall, and soon 12 bright red blood symbols appeared on the city wall. Once the blood talisman was completed, the entire city was wrapped in boundless evil energy. A huge black dog lay in the sky above the city, giving people a feeling that no strangers were allowed to enter. This is the world-famous moon-swallowing Tengu formation. It is a formation specially used to prevent those martial arts masters from violating the prohibition with force and trying to storm the city gate. Once it gets close, all magic will be ineffective, even the most powerful Earth Immortal will be affected. All border fortresses will have this formation, but this formation is only the most basic. The truly powerful formations are found in some state capitals. It is said that the city wall fortresses were built with tiger bones, and tiger bones are also needed to activate the formation. Blood will do. As for the imperial city, it is even more remarkable. It is said that in the forbidden area of the imperial city, a strange formation was arranged by an expert. The gods avoided it, and even the earthly immortals were mortals when they entered. Boss, I can't hold it on any longer, so I'll leave first. At this moment, Gao Zhou called the team and said. He had been stalling for a long time, and the corpses he had accumulated were almost exhausted. He also tried to take advantage of the failure of the Vitality Chariot to overturn it. But even though the Vitality Chariot broke down, it still had the ability to protect itself. A strange layer of Vitality Shield completely rendered his army of zombies useless. They could only keep dragging the chariot and not allow the chariot to do whatever it wanted. Move. As time goes by, although the ugly time is not over yet, Gao Zhou's luck has gradually begun to decline. The Yuankai God sect has repaired the outer cover of the Yuankai God furnace, and the furnace once again spewed out blazing fire. In an instant, the cannon fodder in Gao Zhou's hands was burned to ashes in an instant. Fortunately, Gao Zhou didn't feel bad about how many of these cannon fodders died. Seeing that the Vitality Chariot had regained its power, he could only follow Su Tong's previous instructions and quickly evacuate the battlefield. Rumble, rumble. Not long after, the Vitality Chariot crashed out of the giant pit. But Yeliki glanced suspiciously at the walking corpses that were burned to ashes in the pit, and his face turned cold. Prepare the Vitality Cannon, I want no grass to grow within 10 miles around. Yes. Without the leader, Yeliki could issue orders to the Yuankai sect at will. No one dared to question why the fourth prince issued such a strange order. Immediately, more than 10 huge artillery cannons were seen protruding from the Vitality Chariot. With an order, the dazzling bright light suddenly plunged the surrounding world into darkness. In just an instant, a huge roar turned the mountain forest into flat ground. Seeing that the surroundings had turned into a sea of sand, Yeliki nodded with satisfaction. Let's set off, let's go. The gears of the chariot rotated, and as a large amount of gold and silver jewels were thrown into the vitality furnace, the huge mountain-like body of the chariot began to quickly pursue Su Tong's direction. Only after they were gone did Gao Zhou crawl out of the sand. His skin felt like it was about to be cooked. A large piece of flesh fell off when he touched it with his fingers. He grinned in pain. Damn, I almost turned into an oven pig. He quickly took out a Ad9 reconstruction pill and swallowed it, then cursed and greeted Yeliki's family. Su Tong had received the message from Gao Zhou and knew that Yeliki was already rushing towards them. He glanced at the time and saw that the ugly time had not passed yet, and his luck was not strong enough. He immediately stopped entangled with Dizhou in front of him,
turned around and fled south quickly. "You want to leave, can you?" When Dizhou saw Su Tong trying to run away, how could he let him go so easily? He saw his figure shrinking, and a short sword appeared in his hand. As soon as the sword came out, Su Tong immediately felt the piercing murderous intent. Looking back, he found that Dizhou's luck was soaring like crazy, and his luck was disappearing, and he was like the sun. For a moment, his luck was overwhelmed. It's the sword in his hand. Su Tong's heart sank. He didn't expect that the foundation of the Yuankai divine sect was so deep. The dagger in Dizhou's hand buzzed, giving him a sense of oppression that was no less than that of the two old Taoists from Chunyang Palace. Divine weapon. This sword seems to contain divine thoughts, and I'm afraid it's not Dizhou's property. At this moment, I saw Dizhou holding the magic weapon, swiping his sword, and a sword light shot out and exploded. In an instant, it split the rocks around Su Tong and created a huge trench. "Ha ha ha, aren't you scolding a lot? I think you are nothing more than that." Seeing Su Tong's figure rushing left and right under the sword light, with a look of utter embarrassment, Dizhou couldn't help but burst into deafening laughter. The two of them ran away and chased each other, causing the ground to shake wherever they passed. The huge movement suddenly shocked many people to wait and see. After all, confrontation between the best in the world is not easy to encounter, and it is normal not to encounter it even in more than 10 years. Just like Su Lai from Tianqian and Xiao Lishan from Bumen, even though they are mortal enemies, the two have not seen each other for more than 10 years. Dizhou naturally noticed that there were people peeping in their direction. But instead of expelling these onlookers, Dizhou felt that this was an opportunity. As long as he could kill this person and extract his soul, he would not be afraid that this kid would not tell the truth and wash away the grievances of his Yuan Qi Shen cult. Rumble, rumble. At this time, the ground was shaking. Su Tong took a look and found that the vitality chariot had also caught up. Woo! The desolate sound of gongs echoed in the border fortress, many beacon towers were lit, and billowing smoke rose. In the distance, the city gate was approaching. Su Tong frowned slightly, and saw that the dark clouds in the sky dispersed, a full moon rose, and it was already yin hour. Seeing this, Su Tong stopped abruptly. As soon as he raised his hand, he saw the pure yang sword emerging from his palm. When the long sword fell from his hand, a warm breath flowed into Su Tong's body along the hilt, causing the pure yang qi in his body to surge. The image of Yan Zioqi drawing his sword flashed in his mind, and he waved his sword to strike Dizhou behind him. Roar! The moment the sword edge was drawn, the blazing light of the sun lit up the dark night like a bright Sunday. Dizhou's expression suddenly changed, and he was caught off guard and could only block it with his sword. However, the power of this sword was far beyond his expectation, even sharper than the swordsmanship of Feng Tianhua, the leader of the Huashan sword, and he was immediately sent flying 100 feet away. Huh! Dizhou let out a sound of surprise and looked at Su Tong again. In a trance, he saw a tiger slowly appearing behind Su Tong. He couldn't help but be shocked in his heart. Yin Hu is coming down the mountain. Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 952. Dizhou was not good at learning Yi, but he was also an earth immortal. He could see the shadow of the evil tiger descending from the mountain behind Su Tong, even for just a short moment, and he was enough to recognize that this was the yin tiger in his destiny. Going down the mountain. A person's luck is not fixed and unchangeable. For example, the Sanyang Kai Tai that Su Tong experienced was basically the pinnacle of human luck. The kind that you can pick up money even if you bend down. But it can only last for a short period of time. Putting aside some special fate and weather, most luck is nothing more than the blessing of momentum and force. Just like Su Lai and Xiao Lishan, they took advantage of the country's momentum to force the country's destiny to bless themselves and create an invincible position. There was also Marshal Guo,
the former divine general of Xiankun who protected the country. He guarded Xiongmen and blocked the northern barbarians from moving south for more than 10 years. His fate was already connected with the fate of Xiankun's country behind him. It's a pity that although Marshal Guo is a divine general who protects the country and is not weak, Xiaolishan, he was too upright and refused to control the court. As a result, after his death, the Suankan kingdom was extremely corrupt, the emperor was fatuous, and the country's fortunes were ruined. After heavy losses, Xiangyang will eventually be defeated and die in a fierce battle. Apart from these people, there are also people with unique fates like Su Tong. Their luck is not very strong on weekdays, but within a certain period of time, their luck will reach its peak. However, compared to the luck behind Su Tong, what really made Dizhou feel his heart beat faster was the sword in Su Tong's hand. The long sword is like jade, which shines brightly on people, and is filled with pure yang energy. Su Tong just summoned the sword, and his aura changed astonishingly. There is such a magical weapon in the world, why has no one ever known about it? And who is this person? I have never even heard of it before. Dizhou stared at Su Tong, feeling very shocked in his heart. This pure yang qi is incompatible with my Yuan qi divine section. With the help of this sword, even if I have the divine weapon Mengtajian to help me, I may not be its opponent. Fortunately, there was a sudden tremor behind him, and he saw the fourth Prince Yeliki running towards him in a chariot. With the blessing of the chariot of vitality, Dizhou felt at ease. At this time, Su Tong opened his mouth and said, "Yuan Kai divine sect, you in Human Mountain are killing innocent people indiscriminately and are the enemies of the country and the family. I, Yang Hong, share the sworn hatred with you." His voice was like thunder, and all the onlookers hiding in the distance could hear it clearly. "Nonsense, you were the one who killed the people in the Human Inn." When Dizhou heard this, he immediately pointed at Su Tong angrily. It's a pity that Su Tong's acting skills are too strong. He laughed angrily when he heard this. With ferocious anger and hatred in his eyes, he said with a bit of disdain and sarcasm, "Haha, I thought you were some kind of heroes, but you just dared to do something that you couldn't do. You are just a despicable person who dares to act like this. Look at the sword." Having said that, without giving Dizhou a chance to speak, he struck out with a sword full of grief and anger, and his thoughts resonated with the long sword. Suddenly the sword light shone like the moon in the sky, and in an instant it cut through the void and the real, and appeared in front of Dizhou. Not good. Dizhou's pupils tightened. Facing this extremely bright sword light, he did not dare to be careless at all. For a moment, his figure transformed into hundreds of streams of light. In a flash, the sky was filled with Dizhou's figures. They were not. The false afterimage is actually Dizhou's vitality clone. I saw these figures, big or small. The big ones were like giants, and the small ones were as small as a palm. They scattered in all directions for a while, dazzling everyone. It is the unique skill of the Yuankai God section. The Yuankai God sect uses all things in the world as its vitality, absorbs the essence of all things, and can also differentiate itself into different elemental clones, each of which has great power. There were many knowledgeable people among the spectators. They couldn't help but widen their eyes, trying to find Dizhou's true body, but they were dazzled and couldn't find it for a while, as if every vitality clone was Dizhou himself. It's just that he underestimated the power of Su Tong's sword and the extreme sunfire attached to the pure yang sword. How could it be a joke? Bang bang bang. The sword energy suddenly dispersed, emitting a scorching bright light. The clones flying around in the void seemed to stop for a moment, being captured by the sword energy. Those clones exploded one after another under the wave of sword light. For a moment, the clone in the air was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. In the blink of an eye, it was broken into crystal particles of vitality. Hiss. This scene was an eye-opener for everyone. What is the origin of this person? His sword skills are so domineering. Could he be a master of the Five Mountain Sword Alliance? This move of Dichu's was tried and tested repeatedly, but today it was actually broken by someone's sword. It was really unheard of, and it aroused everyone's suspicion. What is the Five Mountain Sword Alliance? Huashan sword leader Feng Tianhua's own grandson was killed in Hudishan. In the end, he escaped with injuries. I think this man's sword power has surpassed Feng Tianhua. Besides, when has the Five Mountain Sword Alliance ever produced such a strong person, Xiang's pure yang sword technique? Although the murder case in Hudishan has not spread all over the world so quickly, it has already spread at least in the southwest border. Things about Yang Hong were naturally widely spread by people. But there are many debates about what sect Yang Hong is, but no one can make it clear. Seeing the clones being crushed instantly, Dichu's true body emerged, quickly gathering the surrounding clones and returning to his body. However, what Dicho never expected was that Su Tong's figure jumped into the air, and a huge divine furnace appeared behind him. He held a sword in one hand and made secrets with the other, using Yan Shu to search for spirits and bones, and his thoughts transformed in an instant. Make a big net, quickly wrap these crushed vitality clones and throw them directly into the divine furnace behind you. Ha ha ha, I've already taken it out, how can I take it back? Why don't you give it all to me? At this moment, Dichu's face turned green. He never expected that Yang Hong would have such a weird method. He only recovered 3/4 of his energy, which cost him at least 10 years of hard work. Results. I will fight with you. Seeing Su Tong's proud expression, Dicho was so angry that his teeth itched. He waved the divine sword in his hand with all his strength and dived towards Su Tong like a shooting star. Meng Tai's sword was heard clanking, which was completely opposite to the pure yang sword in Su Tong's hand. Since ancient times, there has been no first in martial arts and no second in literature. This is true for all things, and even more so for magic weapons. As the magic weapon that laid the foundation of the northern barbarians' centuries-old destiny, Xiaolishan's sword, the third in the world, can tolerate other swords covering up his own. Itch. Wisps of green sword energy surged from the blade, like a blue dragon emerging from the world, rising against the sky. The five elements fall. Dichu's body stopped in mid-air, and he raised the sword in his hand. A large amount of vitality was injected into the sword. The moment the sword was swung, the stars flickered, suddenly shook and expanded, and the wisps of starlight actually formed gold, wood, and the five elements killing formation of water, fire and earth. This is another one of his unique skills. He collects the vitality of the extraterrestrial starlight and condenses the curse-killing energy of 5 planetary lights. Its power can even be compared with the power of a full-strength shot from a vitality battleship. Su Tong also felt the fighting spirit coming from the pure yang sword. The blade of the sword was raised, and the blazing pure yang fire suddenly lit up the night. Pyrophilia. The fiery sword technique has already been practiced by Su Tong to the full level of LV5. Although there is no bonus of demon power, the bonus of pure yang sword is more terrifying and pure. Passive skill 2, sword skills are as good as the sun, and all sword skills are improved by 3 levels. The exclusive title of Great Wild Burning will increase your fire skills by 2. Ouch! Suddenly the sky turned into day, and Su Tong's sword light seemed to merge with his own luck. The huge white-haired tiger slashed down with the sword edge, making a thunderous roar. The two collided, and the fluctuations started again. With a shocking loud noise, the 5 elements sword chi was immediately shattered by the fire tiger's blow. Huge flames poured down from the sky, and the tiger roared in the sea of fire. He opened his mouth and bit the luck on top of Dichu's head, causing Dichu's luck to decline rapidly in an instant. Dicho has been defeated, everyone exclaimed. At this moment, even the defenders at the city gate behind Su Tong shouted big victory. The generals guarding the city even waved drumsticks in person and stood on the city wall to cheer for Su Tong. Buzz. The screams of the swords in the sea of fire were the sounds made by MaleProtagonist. The divine soldiers in the world obviously could not accept such a defeat. For a moment, he wanted to get rid of Dichu's control and go forward to fight Chunyang's sword again. Now Dichu's expression changed drastically. He knew that this sword was important and he never dared to let it go. He could only give it a go with the full cooperation of this sword. But without the magic weapon controlled by the master, even if it is a clever creature, it will not be able to exert its full power. Clang! The two magic weapons collided. Su Tong just used Tai Chi swordsmanship in an understatement. Pulling and pressing the magic power on the Mengtai sword was gone. He even took the opportunity to kick Dichu in the chest, directly killing him. Kicked in the air. Hey, it's not because MaleProtagonist is defeated, it's just because Dijo is not a good man. If Xiaolishan comes in person, maybe this battle will still be suspenseful. When everyone sees this, they can't help but complain about MaleProtagonist. There are only 3 regrets in the world. They cannot fulfill their filial piety before bed, famous ministers do not meet wise kings, and divine soldiers fall into the world. Although Dijo is the top master in the world, he is not a strong swordsman and cannot exert the power of the divine sword at all. One can imagine how angry and aggrieved the divine sword is clanging at this moment. Fortunately, at this moment, the vitality chariot from behind quickly arrived. Without giving Su Tong a chance to continue to hit the target, he pulled Dijo back into the chariot. Puff! Before Dijo could stand firm, he spat out a mouthful of blood and hurriedly injected a large amount of vitality into MaleProtagonist to calm MaleProtagonist's anger. Otherwise, the sword would rush out crazily in the next moment. To fight to the death with the pure Yang sword in Su Tong's hand. Even if defeated and destroyed, MaleProtagonist will never retreat. This is the pride of the divine weapon and the spirit of this sword. Fortunately, at this moment, Yelaki grabbed the sword from the side. Yelaki gently stroked the blade of the sword with his fingers, and sprinkled blood on the blade with his fingers. The divine soldier, who was extremely restless for a moment, was able to be calmed down. Don't worry, I will keep a record of today's revenge, and I will definitely recover this debt for you. After absorbing Yelaki's blood, MaleProtagonist's anger finally subsided. Yang Hong, I think you win today, but it won't be long before I catch up with you. Then we'll have to settle today's debt. Yelaki's eyes were clear and his words were low, but no one would doubt this man's determination. After all, he is Yelaki, the appointed prince of the northern barbarians. With the assistance of the Yuankai divine sect and the support of the Xiao family behind him, sooner or later he will be able to rank among the top masters. Facing Yelaki's challenge, Su Tong raised his eyebrows slightly, but stared at Yelaki's face calmly and asked, left cheek or right cheek? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Script Killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 953. What did you say? Yelaki was startled when he heard this, wondering if he had heard something wrong. He looked blankly at the disciples of the Yuankai god cult behind him. Let me ask you. Left cheek or right cheek? Su Tong asked again in a deep voice, his voice so loud that it made everyone's eardrums ache. The inexplicable question left everyone confused. They didn't know why Yang Hong wanted to ask this question. Although Yelaki didn't understand why Su Tong asked this, the feeling of being scolded in public made him very angry. He immediately snorted coldly, unwilling to pay attention to Su Tong anymore, and turned back to look at Dijo. Is it okay? Dijo felt pain in his chest. Before he could check the injury, he hurriedly said to Yelaki, I am ashamed that I have failed to live up to His Highness's trust. It doesn't matter. Victory and defeat are common things for soldiers. As long as we have good luck, we will be able to settle this debt sooner or later. Yeliki waved his hand, took out a box from his sleeve and handed it to Dijo. The leader's vitality has been seriously injured this time. This thing can help you restore your vitality. Yeliki opened the box as he spoke. With the fragrance coming out of the box, everyone was refreshed. G-Menu and Dan. Dichu's eyes widened at this moment, and even the leader of a sect could not help but exclaim, looking at Yeliki in front of him in disbelief. At this time, the onlookers in the distance all raised their heads and looked eagerly at the golden pill in Yeliki's hand, and they were all shocked in their hearts. It turns out to be G-Menu and Dan. Hasn't this thing been lost a long time ago? It's really G-Menu and Dan, my god. Everyone's eyes turned red for a moment. What is G-Menu and pill? Is it very precious? Some young people had never heard of this convoluted pill, but looking at the excited expressions of the older generation around them, they couldn't help but curiously asked in a low voice. G-Menu and Dan is rumored to be a rare elixir refined by the Miao Shen cult more than 100 years ago. It is said in the classic of mountains and seas that among the hundreds of thousands of mountains in the west, there is a mythical beast with the body of a dragon and the head of a dragon. It is good at swimming and appears in whirlwinds. Accompanied by the torrential rain, it is extremely powerful and is a mythical beast. This thing requires G-Meng's essence and blood and countless elixirs to be refined for hundreds of days to be successful. However, the Miao Shen cult had already been 120 years ago. It disappeared without a trace, and this medicine will no longer be seen in the world. When an old man talked about this object, his eyes flashed with brilliance. If he wasn't afraid of the vitality chariot, he might have been tempted to snatch it at this moment. Then what effect does this thing have? The young man was not interested in the origin of this thing at all. He wanted to know what the purpose of this thing was, so that it could make everyone present so excited. I heard an old man sneer and say, "It has no effect, it just increases your skill by a dozen." It's more than a 60-year-old skill. It is said that after eating this thing, the mind will be moved, and the wind and rain will follow, which is endlessly wonderful, someone added. 1 mile of skill. At this time, even the young people in the world all turned their heads, staring intensely at the pill in Yeliki's hand. A period of 60 years. I dare to ask how many 60 years the heroes in the world have. Even if they become great masters, most of them will not live for 100 years. 60 years is enough for them to return directly to the end of life. This is equivalent to a spirited young man who just stepped out of school and applied to become a security captain, saving him 60 years of detours. How could anyone not be jealous of such a precious thing? No wonder Yeliki was so confident just now and dared to argue with the world's top master like Yang Hong. But he actually gave such a precious thing to Dijo. Could it be that he still has this treasure? Your Highness, this is absolutely impossible. Others didn't know it, so how could Dijo not know that this elixir belonged to Yeliki's uncle? He personally went to Yunmen Swamp and searched for a year before finding the treasure for Yeliki. This was a coming-of-age gift given to him by his uncle. Whether it was the value of this thing or the love inside it, it was beyond heaven. If he accepted it, this. Take it, the leader worked tirelessly and risked his life to kill the enemy all by himself. It was because of the injuries I suffered from the northern barbarians. Not to mention this one, I would be willing to give up even 10 of them. Yeliki handed the elixir forward, making sure that Dichu took it. This move made many people present silently give a thumbs up. No wonder this person can become the designated prince of the northern barbarians. As Yeliki spoke, he glanced at Su Tong out of the corner of his eye, his arrogant eyes seeming to be a mockery of Su Tong. Can you beat me? I have a magic medicine, I will continue to fight with you next time. You always have bad luck sometimes. But at this moment, Yeliki noticed that the corners of Su Tong's mouth raised slightly. He's smiling. Seeing Su Tong smiling, Yeliki couldn't help but feel a thump in his heart. Before he could react, Dichu's expression behind him suddenly changed, and a ray of silver light suddenly flashed on his chest. A strong force of time struck. Not good. With the speed of time, Su Tong's figure appeared in front of Dicho out of thin air. It turned out that when Su Tong kicked Dichu in the chest just now, Su Tong left a mark of time on him. The time mark can bring you back 1 minute, and with the bonus of touch of time, it can be extended to 2 minutes. The mark cannot affect other people. The only one affected is himself, which means that he will be pulled back to the location of the mark. Su Tong did not continue to take action, but counted the time in his heart, just to wait for this moment. Of course, there is also an element of gambling involved. After all, this is the first time that I have left a mark of time on someone's body. But so what if he loses the bet? He just loses 2,000 script points. What's more, now he won the bet. Faced with the sudden change, even a city like Yeliki was suddenly shocked. I saw Su Tong smiling at Yeliki, and while he was still mentally unstable, he snatched the pill from this guy's hand. Let me ask you, left cheek or right cheek? This weird question again? But this time Yeliki seemed to realize something and immediately hid behind him. But no matter how fast he was, how could he be faster than Su Tong's slap? Snapped. A loud slap hit Yeliki's face, instantly making the northern barbarian prince's face red and swollen. The beating made Yeliki's head buzz, and in a trance, he remembered what he said when he stood on the Vitality Chariot and challenged Su Tong, submit or die. Su Tong didn't respond to him at that time, but now he responded to himself with the loudest slap. Don't speak, right? You're mute. Then Su Tong slapped him again, this time on the right side of his face. This slap directly sent Yeliki flying. Asshole. Dijo came back to his senses at this moment and rushed towards Su Tong like he was going crazy. It's a pity that Su Tong, the defeated general, took it seriously. He turned sideways to avoid Dichu's attack. At the same time, he swung the pure yang sword in his hand and slashed at Yeliki's head. At this critical moment, Yeliki suddenly opened his eyes, and there was a biting chill in his empty eyes. Buzz. The Mengtai Divine Sword, which had already calmed down, flew into Yeliki's hand with a swish sound. As he dodged sideways, countless sword rays surged out from the Divine Sword, not only defeating the incoming sword rays, but also it was the lingering power that stabbed Su Tong straight at him. This turn of events shocked Su Tong. After hurriedly blocking, his figure was suddenly knocked back dozens of steps by the sword light. But Yeliki's attack was not over yet. A thin cheek appeared in the indifferent pupils, and the divine sword in his hand gave birth to blue waves, and the sword's edge reached an incredible level for a moment. Touch of time. In an instant, time around Su Tong began to slow down. Active Skill 1, Touch of Time. It consumes 800 script points and activates the touch of time after activation, which can briefly control the flow of time around you. Duration, 30 seconds, 1 minute after doubling. The stronger the opponent, the shorter the time. It was also the first time for Su Tong to use this active skill. At the moment when time started to slow down, Su Tong finally used his divine eyes and Minji and Kimen to see clearly. Behind Yeliki in front of him, there was a shadow of a person standing. Even at this moment, Yeliki's national fortune, which was only half of his national destiny, became complete in an instant. It's Xiao Lishan. Su Tong was shocked. He didn't expect that this guy could hide a ray of thought in Yeliki's body as a life-saving talisman at critical moments. Wrong. In other words, this ray of thought itself is the other half of the national destiny of the northern barbarians. In just a short moment, Su Tong suddenly seemed to have decided something, and actually took the initiative to face Yeliki's sword. Puff. When the sword blade penetrated Su Tong's chest, the effect of the touch of time also disappeared at the same time. Yeliki's strength at this moment was extremely strong, and it could not last for too long at the beginning of time, just for a moment. It was just this moment of deviation that made Yeliki's pupils tighten slightly, and he decisively gave up on stabbing, and instead jumped into the air, as if he had predicted in advance that Su Tong was going to trade his injury for his life. But what everyone didn't expect was that Su Tong also gave up the attack at the same time. He just raised his palm with a sneer and slapped Yeliki on the face. This slap was extremely fast, but not too powerful. It did not even break the protective sword on Yeliki's body. It just made Yeliki startled and looked at Su Tong suspiciously. He paid the price of serious injury for this fluttering slap. Hand. There was blood at the corner of Su Tong's mouth, and he raised his head. "This is the first time we meet, this slap is for you." As soon as these words came out, Yeliki's pupils suddenly tightened, and he felt an unprecedented sense of shame. But Su Tong Gren had already flown back, and at the same time raised his hand and threw a thunder talisman towards the direction of the vitality furnace. Mean. Yeliki couldn't stop Su Tong from leaving at this time, otherwise the vitality furnace would be hit by thunder and lightning, which would damage it at first, or explode the entire vitality chariot at worst. So even though he was extremely embarrassed, he could only throw away the energy in his hand. The sword struck at the lightning flash. Boom! The entire vitality chariot made a violent sound, and the bright light made everyone close their eyes. When everyone regained their vision, they heard a bang. Meng Taijian fell to the ground, and Yeliki was also swaying at this moment. He stumbled forward dizzily. Fortunately, Dizhou held him in his arms at this moment, felt his pulse with his fingers, and felt relieved. But when he saw Yeliki's face was swollen into a bun, Dizhou's eyes turned red. He glared angrily in the direction Su Tong was escaping and roared heartbreakingly, "Fire, fire!" Infinite script killing. Author, Guo Shui Gan Xiao. Chapter 954. Dizhou was about to explode. Su Tong's move was too cruel. In front of so many people, it was not enough to defeat him in front of Tianqiang Xirguan. He actually slapped the 4 princes and 3 big mouths despite being seriously injured. Even Ji Menu and Dan was taken away. His own face, Baman's face, and the 4th prince's face were all rubbed by him as they were pressed to the ground. It won't be long before today's battle will make everyone in the world a laughing stock. Under Dizhou's roar, the muzzles of the Yuankai chariot were all aimed at Su Tong, but before the Yuankai cannons on the muzzles could be charged, bursts of white smoke were rising from Xiongguan Pass not far away. Gilu, gilu, a huge steel cannon with a height of 3 or 4 people was pushed out. There were dozens of them. Then there was a flash of sparks, boom boom boom. A huge roar sounded, and a large iron ball as thick as the waist was blasted out of the barrel. "It's a divine fire egg, run quickly." Just hearing the sound, some old Jianghu people got numb and turned around and ran away. The divine fire egg, also called the red flame divine thunder, contains special gunpowder carefully prepared by Tianqian. The power of one egg is comparable to that of a sky thunder. The red flame triggered by the explosion can instantly burn the surrounding area of 100 meters to ashes. In an instant, more than a dozen divine fire bombs fell around the Yuankai chariot. The huge explosion caused the Yuankai chariot to continuously shake, making everyone on the chariot unsteady, let alone firing. "Open the door." The guard at the city gate raised his flag and ordered the city gate to open a gap to welcome Su Tong in. Seeing that Su Tong's figure was about to disappear from his sight, Dizhou was so angry that he wanted to drive his vitality chariot and hit him. "Leader, time is not with me. Let's retreat first. It doesn't matter whether we live or die, but His Highness cannot make any mistakes." An elder quickly grabbed Dizhou, who was already furious. Fearing that Dizhou would get carried away, he quickly tried to persuade him. "In front of us is Xinwu Pass, a world-famous pass. The northern barbarian army avoided this side and chose to attack Langshan from the south because there were too many great passes here and it was too difficult to attack the city. What's more, at this moment, the Seongguan formation has been activated, and the billowing black evil has turned into a Tengu and is entrenched on Seongguan. In addition, they have enough cannons. If they really use the Vitality Chariot to ram into the city, they are afraid that the city gate will be knocked open. The Vitality Chariot will also be seriously damaged. Although Dezhou was resentful, he did not dare to make fun of the fourth prince again. He looked in the direction where Su Tong disappeared with a resentful look on his face, yelled unwillingly, and swept his long sleeves away, back. Dezhou was miserable in his heart. He knew in his heart that if he retreated, the reputation of the entire Yuankai divine sect would retreat for 30 years. Unless he could kill Yang Hong with his own hands one day, otherwise. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He could only pick up the fourth prince and rush into the chariot room to heal his injuries. Buzz, boom. The gates of Shinwoo Pass were closed heavily, and the mountains and forests outside the pass had been smashed into scorched earth by Vulcan bombs, but the soldiers above the city gate were cheering for joy. Before Su Tong could take a breath, he was surrounded by a group of soldiers, holding him high above his head and shouting a great victory. Su Tong's battle was really exciting, even more exciting than Zhang Xian's descent from the mountain 16 years ago. Especially the last 3 slaps. The loud slaps are simply more sweet than the sound of New Year's firecrackers. The northern barbarians have repeatedly invaded in recent years, and Tianqian has been unable to defend himself. These northern barbarians often yelled at them, and the big shots in the court talked about things. When they came here, everyone could only shrink their heads in humiliation. The northern barbarian soldiers pointed at their noses to greet their ancestors. This kind of humiliation, until today, I feel like I have been avenged. Hurry up and put it down, stop messing around. The generals guarding the city also hurried over and scolded the soldiers severely. Sir is still seriously injured. How can you let you rough guys treat him like this? Send him to the mansion quickly and ask the city doctors to treat his injuries. The guard general said, and stepped forward to greet Su Tong, clasping his fists and signaling, "This is Luo Jiming, the general guarding Shinwuguan. We admire your majesty, sir. Please come into the city quickly. I have sent someone to ask a doctor to treat your injuries." Faced with such a warm invitation, Su Tong couldn't bear to refuse. In fact, although his injury was serious, it was not fatal. He used the touch of time to cleverly avoid the critical point. Coupled with his own physique, it would be difficult to hurt himself if the opponent didn't have a magic weapon in his hand. When entering the customs, there was no serious problem after taking another Ad9 reconstruction pill. However, facing the fiery eyes of everyone in front of him, Su Tong simply agreed. After all, people had already started killing pigs and sheep. I always feel a little guilty if I skip a meal. News of the battle at Shinwuguan spread quickly. When the results of the victory came out, everyone felt like they were in a dream. Yang Hong's name quickly spread in the world, and Su Tong's previous preparations in Hudishan created an almost perfect character for him. The young man perished, studied under his master, and lost his junior sister. After a bloody battle with Dichu at Shinwuguan, he snatched the elixir and slapped Yeliki 3 times. After this operation, it really makes people feel happy and happy, young hero. Various versions were circulated for a while. Do you still remember the mustache of the human inn? As a person who personally experienced the human massacre, he was frightened to the point of almost losing his mind. After recovering, he hated the Yuan Kai-shen cult more than anyone else. As an elder of the beggar clan, this person is not very strong, but he may be able to speak well. Seeing that Su Tong was so angry for him, he began to use Yang Hong as the protagonist and compiled a novel, divided into 3 parts, Human Murder Case Excalibur Boy Famous Shinwoo. This story may be true or false, but in order to attract people, it cannot avoid a lot of artistic processing. Yang Hong, a rugged soldier, is described as a young man in white clothes, with a jade face and eagle eyebrows. His behavior is gentle and elegant. The magic sword in his hand is described as being forged by heaven and earth and harvesting the essence of the sun and moon. In the battle in front of Shinwoo Pass, Dezhou was beaten so hard that he fled with his head in his arms, and the northern barbarian crown prince Yeliki screamed. He was slapped 3 times until he cried for his father and his mother, and knelt down to beg for mercy. Although it was an exaggeration, it was very enjoyable to listen to. He was distributed by mustache to the disciples of the beggar clan and spread it everywhere all day long. At one time, everyone from an 80-year-old man to an 8-year-old child listened with gusto. Even many girls from famous families are almost smitten. Of course, some people question this matter. After all, Yeliki was an extraordinary person. How could he be slapped 3 times on his face? They thought it was nonsense. But these people soon shut up. The Tianqian court has received a report from Xinhuiguan, confirming the news. Not only Shinwoo Pass, but Wu Ji, the commander-in-chief of the frontline operations, also sent news, confirming that Yang Hong's origin was indeed a survivor of the Xian kingdom. What surprised people even more was that he had already joined the Tianqian army. This time the vanguard was defeated. He gathered the defeated army, formed a cavalry, cut off the northern barbarians' food routes for dozens of days, killed thousands of enemies, and beheaded Hugili and Abeo, Bao and other northern barbarian generals. As soon as the news came out, the entire court was shocked. Hugili is nothing, he is just a make-up at best. But Abeo was one of the most famous generals in the world, and it was under Abeo's force that the main gate of the kingdom of Xian was defeated. He was actually killed by Yang Hong's troops. Wu Ji even sent Abeo Bao's head over, further proving that what he said was true. It is said that after Emperor Jiaozong got the news, he immediately sent people to Wu Ji for verification. Wu Ji even prepared a list of military exploits. The dazzling military exploits, heads and ears of the northern barbarians cannot be faked. After Emperor Jiaozong was confirmed, he was so happy that he couldn't sleep all night. He immediately issued an order to confer Yang Hong with the rank of Pingbei General and the title of Xinwu Marquis. In addition, he would receive rewards and other gifts when the battle was over. When the news spread, people throughout the world spread praises. All the generals stationed there were red-eyed. It is difficult to advance to a military general. There are 60 levels in total. If you don't have enough military merit, you will just have to go through seniority, which means you will be promoted to 2 levels in 3 years. And General Pingbei is not a miscellaneous general, nor is he a so-called partial general, but a regular general with a second-rank official position. He is a member of Sci-fi General. If an ordinary general wants to reach this point, if he does not rely on Po Tian's military exploits, but only relies on his seniority, it will take at least 40 years to reach this point from a 5th-grade general. But there is no point in envy. Who let people show their military exploits there? Some people are also surprised that with Wu Ji's personality, even if he doesn't take all of this groundbreaking contribution, he will give you at least half of it, but this time he actually reported it truthfully. But thinking about it again, Yang Hong even dared to hit Yeliki, the prince of the northern barbarians, in the face. What does your mere coach mean? In short, as soon as the news came out, Beggar Gang's mustache immediately released a new work called Xinwu Breaks the Northern Barbarians, which set off another big wave. Good news came one after another, and at this moment Su Tong was holding the leg of lamb and chewing it deliciously. On the side, Luo Jiming, the guard of Xinwu Gate, brought over the grilled mutton skewers, and sat on the chair with Su Tong to eat meat and drink wine. Luo Jiming looked at Marquis Xinwu, who was younger than himself, with no jealousy in his eyes, only admiration. After all, he saw with his own eyes that Su Tong slapped Yeliki even though he was seriously injured. With this arrogance, Luo Jiming had to admire him. In contrast, Su Tong is much calmer. After all, from the beginning to the present, he has accumulated military exploits for so long, and it is natural for him to have a huge change in his identity. Brother Yang, if you ask me, you can recover here. With your military exploits, it doesn't matter whether you return to the front line or not. Luo Jiming said to Su Tong while eating mutton skewers. Hey, the battle on the front line is unknown, so why should I be lazy here? Su Tong waved his hands and looked concerned about the country and the people. He was someone who had played Li Zhang, and his righteous and awe-inspiring look was almost natural. Luo Jiming just sighed, forget it, Brother Yang, remember to leave a mouthful of meat for the other brothers. When Su Tong heard this, he realized that Luo Jiming's words had a deeper meaning. Just when he was about to ask, he heard a report from outside the door. Report. General, there is a Taoist outside who wants to see the Marquis. Taoist. Su Tong was startled and asked, do you know the origin? The other party calls himself Master Zhang of Longhushan. Hearing what the door envoy said, Su Tong couldn't help being shocked and thought to himself, why does this old guy come to the door again?